Good evening. If you desire to address the City Council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and present it to the City Clerk. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time. And at this time, I will call to order and convene the City Council and City Council's successor agency to the Community Redevelopment Agency. We will have an invocation offered by Council Member Hussey, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Member Mitchell. If you would all please stand and remain standing.
Please bow your head and pray with me. God, we come here together as a community, and we pray, Lord, that you guide this council and give us the wisdom to make the correct decisions that will make the city better, to protect it, and to have it prosper in your name, Lord. God, I ask that you, with a humble heart, to show your blessings to the residents, to the city staff, and to protect our first responders, Lord, at all times. You, Lord, are the one we trust. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in pledging our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council Members Hussey and Mitchell. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hussey,
Present.
Councilmember Wilson,
I'm here.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Robles,
Present.
Mayor McNable.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item tonight is special presentations. We will start with the presentation of a certificate of recognition to Jacob Brunk. And I believe we have an official presentation here tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Steve Lassiter. I'm a battalion chief with San Bernardino County Fire Department. We'd like to recognize a very special member of the community today, Mr. Jacob Brunk, and ask him to come up. I'm going to let Captain Noble give you a quick rundown of what happened with Jacob, and I think you'll all be very pleased.
On July 28th, Jacob had just been swimming with his friends, or was getting ready to go swimming, and he saw some kids playing with fireworks out in the fields on the east end of town between us and Ritchie Canyon. Thank you. And anyway, so he saw them playing with fireworks, and then he saw a fire start. So he ran about, I don't know, half a mile or so from his house over there, and had his beach towel with him and proceeded to put out the fire. The fire got to be about 1/8 to 1/4 of an acre, which is a lot of work for anybody, but with one guy with a beach towel, that deserves honorable mention, to say the least. So we'd like to honor him tonight and thank him for his hard work and for keeping the community safe, and offer him a job. Okay, in a couple years. So, as a thank you from the fire department, appreciate it. Oh, yeah, you gotta shake
Thank you,
his hand,
sir.
too.
Okay.
All right, here's a box, man.
We have one more item to present to you, and this is on behalf of the City Council. City of Grand Terrace Certificate of Recognition is presented to Jacob Brunk for his bravery and quick action fighting a small fire, presented this 22nd day of September 2015, signed by myself and all the council members. And I would like to present this to you. I'll come out. council members, do you want to have a picture with this local hero? Okay, we have one more presentation for you, Jacob. We have representative from our Assembly member Cheryl Brown's office to present you with something as well.
You want me to use the microphone? Do you have a mic?
We go to the podium. Okay. No, it's not on.
We're going to reposition up here.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here on behalf of your wonderful Assemblywoman Cheryl Brown, who represents the 47th Assembly District, and that includes Grand Terrace. And Jacob, we'd also like to recognize you for your heroic efforts. So it is my honor to present this certificate to you in recognition of your heroic actions. I commend your quick thinking and personal initiative when you came upon a quarter-acre brush fire on July 28th. Your quick actions in putting out the growing blaze with only a beach towel, might I add, is remarkable. And on behalf of your Assemblywoman, she would like to thank you. Dated September 22nd, Assemblymember Cheryl Brown.
That's great.
Okay. I'm Jacob. I really wasn't expecting to be having all of this. And thank you.
Jacob, thank you for your heroism and just knowing that something needed to be done and doing it instead of leaving it for someone else. You've set a fine example of seeing something that needs to happen and making sure that it's taken care of. That's a wonderful quality for anybody, but it's certainly a wonderful quality to know that we have in our residents here in Grand Terrace. And I think a couple of the council members would like to say something to you as well. So thank you. I really appreciate you stepping up and doing this. Councilmember Mitchell.
Jacob, I hope your parents bought you a new towel. They did, right? All right, good. Well, parents, good job raising him so far. What a hero for the community. And Jacob, great work thinking on your feet and reacting. And I'm sure whether you're a firefighter in the future or something else, you're going to be amazing. Thank you for what you did for putting out the fire and for the residents there. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Sometimes it just takes the guy or the gal to step up and do something. And really appreciate your effort. Thanks.
Councilmember Hussey.
Well, Councilmember Mitchell stole my joke. I think she heard me talk about the towel, but I'm sure your parents are very proud of you, and they didn't care about the towel after they heard what you've done. But thank you, Jacob, and make sure you keep all those certificates and get a copy of the news thing for the job resume and bring it up to them. So they promise you a job in a couple of years. But I really appreciate it, young man, and you're what makes Grand Terrace grand. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Robles.
And I also agree with my peers here. It's very rare that someone sees a problem and takes it upon themselves to try to fix it. And that's an absolutely wonderful characteristic. And you're going to be a fine citizen as an adult in this society, and I'm looking forward to meeting you then.
Okay. Thank you again. And thank you for having the courage to stand up here, because I think putting out the fire probably was easier than standing up and speaking in public. Very good job. Thank you again. All right, we have one more special presentation tonight, and that's a presentation of proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. So the City of Grand Terrace proclaims Red Ribbon Week, whereas the City of Grand Terrace values the health and safety of all of our citizens. Substance abuse is particularly damaging to one of our most valuable resources, our children, and a contributing factor in the 3 leading causes of death for teenagers: accidents, homicides, and suicides. And whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs, and whereas Red Ribbon Week in the City of Grand Terrace offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, which is no use of illegal drugs, no illegal use of legal drugs, and whereas Red Ribbon Week campaign will be celebrated in the City of Grand Terrace October 5th through the 9th, 2015, along with Terrace View Elementary School, and whereas business, government, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyle by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. And now, therefore, I, Darcy McNaboe, Mayor of the City of Grand Terrace, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim October 5th through the 9th, 2015, as Red Ribbon Week in the City of Grand Terrace, and encourage citizens, organizations, schools, nonprofits, businesses, and other entities in the community to engage in activities and events that assist in these efforts. Signed this 22nd day of September 2015 by myself and my colleagues on the council. And I believe we have some representatives from Terrace View Elementary and the PTA. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. On behalf, I'm here representing the Terrace View PTA. And on behalf of the PTA, we wanted to thank you for proclaiming Red Ribbon Week, the week that we're celebrating it at our school. We feel that it's very important to not only at the school level, but the community level, to come forward and to make drug awareness very visible and promote it as much as possible so that we can have students like Jacob who think not only of himself, but think of others when in harm's way. And we thank the fire department for Fire Prevention Week and drug awareness participation. It's the community that helps so that students like Jacob can think about actions. So we're here to say thank you, and we are looking forward to Red Ribbon Week. We hope that the community will wear red ribbons, put red ribbons up at your businesses. When we started to organize the school's Red Ribbon Week, it started very small. We had not done it before, this particular committee, and it is amazing how in such a short time this community has come together with monetary donations with, we're doing a poster contest, and our students are going to be awarded free month lessons for music, for dance, for taekwondo, things that we want to focus on to be healthy. We want our students to be able to build the confidence within themselves to say no to drugs. We want to start them early because we know that children are very, they are very impressionable early on, and they're easy to influence early on. So we want to start now. As we were walking up, my son said, "Mom, does red mean no drugs?" I said, "Yes. When you see red, it means say no to drugs." So thank you all for participating. We hope that you can help spread the word in the community to your neighbors, to businesses, that October 5th through the 9th, we'll be celebrating Red Ribbon Week. We're going to go out, our committee will go out into the community surrounding the school and put red ribbon up. So I hope that code enforcement doesn't get me when I put the ribbon up. If they do, I'll just say, the mayor said I could. We want to really make it visible for the students so they can really identify with the red. On October 5th at 8 a.m. on Brentwood, the fence behind the school, we'll be doing a ceremony with all of our students tying red ribbon to kick off the week. If you are not busy and you can come join us and cheer the students on, I think the more visible, the more people, the stronger the message that they will get. Thank you.
Did you want to share the poster? And
We do. We have a poster, and it says, take my hand and make a stand. Be drug-free.
Okay, very nice.
And it's just joining together as a community to make that stand together. I have Christy and Areli, the two moms with me. Two of us have kindergartners, so we'll be there for a long time at the school. And hopefully we'll be able to focus on red ribbon every year and make it a very important part of our annual celebration.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate all the work that you're putting into this. And I know, Julia, you and I have spoken about all the things that you have planned, and I do have it on my calendar to be there on the 5th. Council members, do you have anything you'd like to say? Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you for doing this, and especially for the kids. The more we get the word out there and we develop the young minds, the better chance we have that they won't experiment in drugs. But I really appreciate all your hard work and everything you're doing for this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that we're also doing is we're working with the high schoolers. And it's been amazing that they're going to be able to send about 60 students to our campus on team day. And they're going to come in their uniform, whatever club or organization they belong to. They're going to walk on our campus, and they're going to go in the classrooms. They're going to read to the kids. They're going to tell the kids, I get to graduate, I stay in school, I do healthy activities. We want that to be the message that our young students get from them. So I think it's amazing. If you see a high schooler that's involved in this, I think thank them as well, because I think it's a pretty big deal when you have them able to participate in that way.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you, and I love how you're integrating different components of the community into the Red Ribbon Week, from the high schoolers to the businesses to your city council. I just think it's absolutely amazing, and it's going to be successful when you integrate at that level. So kudos to all of you, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you again for letting us participate in this.
Yes.
All right.
Is it possible that we can have our students get a picture, our children get a picture with you, since this is a big deal? It's official.
Yeah, let's
official.
do that.
Okay.
All right, follow Christy. I'll get that. You got to break it up on opposite ends.
And thank you very much for the red ribbons. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by City Council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may remove an item from the consent calendar for discussion. And I believe we are removing one of the items. We are removing item 2, which is approval of minutes from the regular meeting 8/25/15. Are there any other items to remove? Okay. We have a request to speak from Joe. Nario. Okay, number 4. That was the question I was going to ask. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to remove item number 2 from the consent calendar. Are there any other items to remove? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for the balance.
A motion to move the balance. I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion and second. Please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye, or Mayor McNable voted aye.
Thank you. The item that was removed, August 25th minutes, there were 2 corrections to be made to this. So on packet page 7, we have under consent calendar approval of regular minutes 8/11/2015, and the date needed to be changed for the approved minutes of 8/11/2015. There was a typo in that, so that's been corrected. And then on packet page 12, Mayor Pro Tem Robles, in her remarks, there is the requested change to the term revenue shortfall.
Well, that's still incorrect.
Okay.
Our audio, you've noticed, is bad, so what it was two comments. One was, does the child care center revenue cover any shortfall throughout the year? And the second was outlining that the cost allocation of over $200,000 helps staff some of our general fund employees. So it was to kind of, in the comment about why are we in the child care business, well, that's a valid question. Being on the council, staff apprised me that there is a cost allocation that benefits us hiring general employees. So we might want to have to continue this, I guess.
Okay, so we'll bring this item back. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item C, which is public comment. And this is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask questions for clarification. I also may request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment, or may request a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Are there any request to speak forms? Thank you. Okay, their first speaker request form comes from George Saunders. If you would come to the lectern, please, and state your name for the record.
My name is George Saunders. I live at 22386 Pico Street. My concern is the lack of control of runoff water on the north side of Pico Street below Mount Vernon. Last week's runoff water condition is not unique to us. Last year, on Sunday, August 4th, we had a monsoon, and it basically inundated the whole stretch of property above the Gage Canal. This condition has occurred on other times in the past when we have had heavy rains. NOAA has predicted that this will be a strong wet winter for us, and we do hope to have it because of the drought conditions. We have been lucky so far this year as the monsoons have mostly missed us. Moreno Valley, Wildomar, and Lake Elsinore have not been that lucky. Pico Street water control infrastructure has not been maintained, and as a result, the lower lying properties on the north side of Pico Street from Mount Vernon to Pico Park are subject to flooding. The lots on the north side of Pico Street generally slope from the south to the north, and Pico Street, of course, is sloping in a westerly direction. Many of the houses and garages are older ones, and they are basically a ground level and subject to flooding. The flooding, basically the water goes through the lots and then goes along a block walls that border the backs of the houses on Franklin until the end of the block wall. And at that point, then that water flows into Franklin and has done damage at the intersection or at the corner of those lots. Do you want me to stop?
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Water from the intersecting streets increases the flow on the north side of Pico Street, as does the water that comes from Franklin down to Gage Canal. Below the Gage Canal to the high school, it is also noted that the additional water keeps gaining momentum in that area. And I have been at the sand pile over there filling sandbags, and some of the people down below have also filled sandbags to try to protect their property. My understanding is that the city of Grand Terrace is responsible for the control of runoff water and may be responsible for damages, if any, are caused by this runoff water. I would like to request that the city investigate the situation and consider making improvements for the control of the Pico Street runoff water. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. I have your contact information, and I will have staff contact you so that they can ask you any questions with regards to some of the specifics you brought up tonight. Thank you. Our next speaker is Cassandra Arellano.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, esteemed council members, and fellow members of Grand Terrace community. My name is Cassandra, and I'm a resident of Grand Terrace. My husband, my 1-year-old, and I moved to a corner house on the cross streets of Van Buren and Oriole in January. I am here today as a concerned parent and citizen. Every day, I witness the following within 100 feet of my front door. 1, children ages 1 through 18 playing outside. Mine, 16 months old. My neighbors, Steph and Brian Pope, their sons, 2 and 5. 2, community members walking their dogs, much like this one. 3, neighbors taking their nightly walks, something we all do here in Grand Terrace. 4, the boys from up the street riding their bikes. 5, a school bus stop right across the street. However, I also witnessed the following in that same 100 feet. 1, cars speeding over the posted speed limit. 2, vehicles blowing the posted stop sign. 3, cars making illegal U-turns. 4, more recently, a vehicle slamming into my neighbor's front porch. 5, parents double parking and letting their children cross the street to the bus stop without even a parent holding their hand. My neighbor and I knocked on every resident's door on Van Buren in the last 2 days. We collected a petition, which I have here for you.
Would you hand that to the city clerk, please?
I will. I will ask for it, that we can get copies. I forgot to bring one.
Okay,
I don't know who the city clerk is. Thank you.
thank you.
We collected over 40 signatures in the last 2 days. There was no hesitation from them to sign. Most were delighted. Like me, these fellow residents on Van Buren want to see a change, want to believe our streets can be safe for our families. Several have almost been hit, pets have been killed. Many refuse to let their children play outside because of the danger. One of the residents stated her parked car had been hit. The girl that hit her car, the car flipped because the girl was going so fast. I ask you to remember what it was like as a child to play outside. Now imagine your parents telling you it was not safe. Imagine being the parent who could change it. I am that parent, and you can help me. You have helped by painting the streets, but that's only half the problem. We need speed bumps to slow the drivers down. It is time to be proactive instead of reactive, especially before a child gets hurt or possibly killed. We cannot allow ourselves to be handcuffed by red tape. Please take these signatures into consideration immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ariano. I appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk, and we will have staff contact you.
Thank you.
And maybe, Mr. City Manager, we can have a neighborhood meeting there with staff.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Our next speaker is Jeffrey McConnell.
Jeffrey McConnell, Walnut Avenue. This Sunday, September 27th. Oh, thank you very much.
I appreciate your brevity.
Yes. Lions Club is having their second annual 5K run. We want you to encourage everybody to come out, run, walk, crawl, roll if you have a wheelchair, anything you want. I think last year one of our Lions Club members did it on crutches. So it's mostly family fun and a good community event, and I encourage everybody to come out and participate. You can register now with any Lions Club member, and there are 7 in this room, or you can go to lionsfreedomrun.racewire.com. Second item, Lions Club is having their annual pot of gold in the evening in Tuscany. It is called Grand Prize $20,000. You have a chance of winning $20,000 in the grand prize. Every 5 tickets drawn, there's 250 tickets, and every fifth ticket will be a $100 prize. There's a dinner, dancing, lots of fun, line dancing. Tickets are $200 plus $70 for dinner. It's a black and white dress code tie event, I think. That's what it says. I have tickets here if anybody's interested, or any Lions Club member you can contact. I encourage you to come out and have a good time. Thank you.
Jeffrey, what was the date?
The date? Oh, thank you. That one I missed. It is Saturday, November 21st at the National Orange Show in the Renaissance Room. Starts at 6 o'clock, dinner served at 7. Drawings begin at 8:30, evening attire, black tie preferred, except for the ladies, of course. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Robert Suter.
Good evening, Mayor McNoble, City Council, Manager Duffy. I'm here concerned about the hiking on Blue Mountain, and I had hoped that Mr. Zappi would be going ahead of me because there's nothing like impromptu speaking and no preparation. But we have experienced for a long time numerous vehicles being parked on Westwood Street and Westwood Lane. They have made one side of Westwood Lane no parking as a fire lane, partially as a result of that. And on one occasion, the cars have been parked from the end of Westwood Street up to the La Greca's residence. So anybody that wanted to visit Carter Lane at the end of Westwood Street would probably have to walk about 800 to 1,000 feet to visit him. They park in front of mailboxes. They can interfere with the trash collection, and some of them are belligerent. They bring dogs that are not kept on the leash. I understand California works on the no-bite rule, so these dogs are not muzzled. They've driven away any wildlife that's been present in the area. The coyotes apparently are more resilient, and so are the rattlesnakes. But we used to see skunks, raccoons, an occasional possum, various things like that. Once in a great while, there was a bobcat. And we've recently had a burglary. The residences up in that area are fairly secluded, some of them. So if anyone decides to go in and cause any kind of mayhem, they would certainly not be detected by anyone passing by. Also, they had recently a stalker. You probably are aware of these things, and that person has been arrested. But as I understand it, I've seen his vehicle there before 5 o'clock in the morning and late after dark in the evening. I don't know how late. He was a frequent, visitor. I've seen him there one time with a young child and with another woman. Whether I thought it was his wife, we thought maybe he was living in his van. You understand my concerns, and I'd be interested in where you're going to locate the trailhead for the Blue Mountain Trails, and that's principally why I'm here, but I wanted to ensure that you were aware of the situation on Westwood Street. I have requested the city to provide me with information as to what they would require to designate the area as a parking by permit only. This would make the neighborhood a much more safer, and I know some of the people are opposed to that, but it would preclude a lot of the problems. One of my neighbors has had 2 confrontations with people with dogs. On one occasion, the dogs growled at him. So we have a potential for some problems there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. I appreciate you coming out and
Thank you.
sharing that opinion. And you have given your information to the staff so they can get you the information you've requested, correct?
I'm sorry?
The staff has your information so they can get you the information that you've requested?
They have contact information, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the last speaker slip I have is from Ashley Jones on behalf of Assemblymember Cheryl Brown.
Good evening once again, Honorable Mayor McNaboe and members of the City Council. I came this evening to provide an introduction. I will now be serving as your liaison for Assemblymember Brown for the state of Grand Terrace. And so if you would like to leave a message or get a message, I guess you could say, to her or invite her to an event, I'd be happy to assist you with that. And we're always there for you, whatever you need. I'd also like to announce an event that the Assemblymember will be holding this Friday. She's having a small business hearing in the San Bernardino County Government Center, where the Board of Supervisors meets. And she has several speakers planning to participate, including the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, the U.S. Small Business Administration. She has the San Bernardino County Economic Development Agency, the Riverside County Economic Development Agency, among others. And we will be providing free resources for small businesses, and we're going to be focusing on workforce development and what we could possibly do to enhance the workforce that we have here. And we would just be honored to have your attendance, and I have these flyers that I brought with me. I guess I should pass them on to Ms. City Clerk, Pat. Okay. And for anybody else who is in the audience that would like to have this information, I'm sitting right there, and I'd be happy to share it with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. We appreciate you being here. Look forward to seeing your face more often. And And please thank the Assembly member for her interest in our community. I know she regularly attends the events that we have, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have no more request to speak forms. Before I close public comment, is there somebody else that would like to speak? Okay. Seeing no takers, I will close public comment, and I will bring it back to our council members for their communications. We'll start with Council Member Bill Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, residents, for coming here tonight, and thank you, residents, for voicing your opinion. It's we do hear every comment, and I just had a couple things, Mayor. I attended the chamber ribbon cutting ceremony at Cal State for Butner's Racing, so that was a pretty neat event. And another thing, I know we had a gentleman speak about the floods on Pico, the streets. It's like a river, but I got to stand guard duty over an open drain we had a sinkhole. So I called the city manager, and so we're out there putting cones with Miss Fortune out there. So we might have to hire her for city maintenance and get her a vest. But my concern was that noticing that sinkhole, the pipe there was corroded. And I talked to the city manager about it, and my concern is throughout the city, how many other pipes do we have corroded and what's going to happen? I know we voted for to have our streets looked at, but I just wondered if that was part of the infrastructure to look at our storm drains, since we also have, the El Nino expecting. But like I said, I was pretty surprised that the pipe that's supposed to be, I don't know, stainless steel or something to hold up a little bit better underground, which it didn't, just collapsed. So that's just voicing my opinion on that concern. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilmember Doug Wilson.
Councilmember Hussey, I know that there were quite a few plans in relation to the storm drain system in this city, and I know that the subject has been brought up. Unfortunately, what happened to us in relation to the RDA circumstances and a few other things concerning bonds, the money in order to be able to do those things got stopped. And so I'm going to be happy as business moves forward and as our economy starts to move forward, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to be able to renew some of our infrastructure. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank everyone for attending tonight. It's great to see this room filled with active minds and bodies and I guess soul and heart, because that's what it takes to be part of a community. I want to thank our city staff for their quick response of cleaning up the hazards in the roadway on Pico after our recent rains. I also want to request that staff look into some preparation plans for the El Nino that may hit this winter, so that we are well prepared and we can take care of some of those issues. I know last winter it was 2-3 days I had my family and I out picking up weeds and loading the back of our truck with trash cans and returning it to residents and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping not to have to do that this winter. I also attended the Butler Racing event, and kind of neat to see a homegrown idea come to fruition, and just went out and supported it and thought it was really neat. Not as well attended as desired or hoped, but maybe in the future it may be better attended if he does another fundraiser. I also request that staff look into a trash receptacle in the Walgreens parking center. It seems to have quite a bit of clutter and trash around the ATM at the Wells Fargo. I think we can keep our city looking neat if we place a receptacle there and make contact with the owner. And last, I want to compliment Mr. Wilson on his fine choice of a suit jacket for tonight. I think we look like two perfect bookends. That concludes it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not suggesting maybe that we all have a uniform that we wear from now on?
Just a thought.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Robles.
I have too much yellow on my complexion already, so I wouldn't wear it. I'm going to bring up some items because of the way the Brown Act works. We don't really talk to each other, because if three of us talk about a subject, we would violate the Brown Act. So this is an opportunity to say that I'm sure we all got an email from the planners of the Sandbag for the City-County Conference. And so before I forget, some of the concepts I had was one of the top three things that I put was, I think we need to talk about expanding regional parks in the county. There was at one point when I worked for the county Board of Supervisors 30 years ago, we talked about a Santa Ana Regional Park. And talking to the leagues here and the ones in Colton, we need more fields, we need more space, and I would just like to have some passive green space just to go and enjoy the day. So that's something that I put forward. And when we talk about our strategic planning, and in your role in Sandbag, you know, to keep maybe some of that concept alive, and talking to, in your role there with the public members from Colton would be good. The second thing I put on there is one of the things that helps the economy is having taxable sales, and I've shared with the city manager that, you know, I don't like to have to go to Redlands for a meal or for retail, and I'd like to do it here. And it seems like in Redlands they have a lot of small business folks, and that's something that I think we needed to talk about and strategize. And lastly, they asked about maybe who could be, you know, keynote speakers. And today, and I'm sure the city manager will be talking about it, there's some action on a different two for redevelopment that's going to help as far as some of the items left behind from the larger RDA. You know, it's stuff that just broke, so there's not enough analysis. But I know the city manager has let us know that there's some redevelopment funds that we do have, and hopefully, and maybe in your communications, you can update us if there's anything there for storm drainage. And I've already forgotten what the third thing was, but the thing that's really, you'll hear from me a lot, is I really want to see a regional park for this east end of the county. We really, you know, don't have enough space here. The other thing is, Mayor, you had asked me to talk to, contact Almatrans about the kind of transportation system we have. So the city manager and I will be meeting with them Thursday, and we'll be getting that report prepared and a presentation to be scheduled so we can have, you know, a better understanding what our current transportation system is and have a dialogue of what we can do better. I've asked them to bring, if they have any studies about what number of our population commutes out. I know my son commutes to Irvine, and I know that there's other reading. Jason, your father worked in Irvine, and I know one of our people that's active in town said he couldn't join Lions when we were doing the booth because he commutes every day to Orange County, and he's out of here very early, even before earlier than the Lions meet. So I just wanted to make sure as I'm learning in my 3 years, I says, you know, I need to use this sometimes to say things to you that I can't say to you privately. You know, it's in the public and we're all on the same page. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a number of items from our report that one of them does have, actually two of them have to do with sandbags. So we had the Metro Valley study session on September 9th, and we reviewed construction contract change orders for ongoing sandbag construction contracts. We reviewed an RFP for on-call public outreach support for major projects. We received quarterly major project status briefing through June 2015. We reviewed a State Route 210 at Pepper Avenue interchange construction cooperative agreement with Caltrans, and an option to solicit bids for mitigation of critical habitat impacts. We looked at the I-10 truck climbing extension project and the project initiation documentation phase cooperative agreement with Caltrans. We looked at the Laurel Street grade separation cooperative agreement for bus service, which is a really interesting one. They're realizing with that street grade separation that the students are going to have a difficult time walking to school, so they're setting up a cooperative agreement for bus service to make sure the kids can get to school. Next item was a budget amendment for agreement with the City of Rialto, and then a revised project list for Valley Major Street Program arterial and subarterial programs. These are items that will go to the full Sandbag board at their next meeting at the first Wednesday of October. Also with Sandbag, we had a strategic workshop on the afternoon of Thursday, September 17th, and the morning of Friday, September 18th. where we looked at an overview of the existing and recent Council of Government activities that the organization has been undertaking. When Sandbag was first formed, it was formed as a Council of Governments. So there's a representative of each of the cities within the region and each of the 5 Board of Supervisors members. That was in 1973. It was formed as a joint powers authority between these organizations. And since that time, they've taken on many other roles. One of them is the County Transportation Commission, and they began that role in 1976. The Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies, those are the tow trucks that are on the freeways that will stop and help motorists that are broken down and get them out of the traffic so that traffic continues to flow freely. They started that in 1986. They became the County Transportation Authority in 1989 and the Congestion Management Agency in 1990. So as their functions expanded, and it seemed like the right place for these functions to meet because they had the representatives from all the cities and the 5 supervisor members of the Board of Supervisors. And so they started to take on these roles. And then with Measure I, that was where they really got into the County Transportation Authority, where they had the ability to talk about the projects needed within the region for transportation. What they found, though, is that the risk to all the member agencies have increased significantly with each of these different hats, so to speak, that each of these board members wear. And they started to really look at how much risk was involved towards the members' agencies. So in other words, Grand Terrace has a higher risk just by being associated with this Joint Powers Authority because of all these roles that this organization is playing it, just as all the other cities that are members do. So Sandbag put together an ad hoc committee of some of their board members and some of their staff members to look at what is really involved with the way matters are looked at and the way things are operated at this time, and what might be a better opportunity and a better way to move forward to mitigate some of the risk to their member agencies. And of course, they came up with 3 different ways of proceeding, and one of them was to do nothing and continue as business as usual. The second was to keep the current structure, but with added liability barriers and protections, and so maybe coming up with certain ways to add mitigation of risk. And the third one was to create a totally new structure for the entity, transferring the employees who are now part of the Joint Powers Authority into this new entity. And many of the functions, the rights and the obligations, liabilities would also transfer to this new entity. So the convening of this strategic planning group was not the full board, nor was it ever meant to be a board meeting. So it was an opportunity for people to talk about it and discuss it and to make recommendations to the board. So the recommendation to the entire board will be made, and the proposed new structure will be to create 2 entities instead of 5. So in other words, they'll keep the JPA that is Sandbag for the Council of Governments as it is, but then they'll form a new entity that will act as the Transportation Authority, the Transportation Commission, the Congestion Management Agency, and the Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies. They will be formed into a new entity. In order to do this, it of course will take legislative action because this body came into being through legislative process. And so if the Sandbag board looks at forming these 2 new entities and splitting out their responsibilities, they will have to move forward in a legislative process. And that's where actually it would come back to this council to look at that legislation and decide whether it was something that we supported. So the board will talk about, do they want to move forward with the legislation, and then we as a council will get to look at it and determine if that's something we want to report or want to support at that time. The other things that we talked about is the role of Sandbag and Council of Governments, the role of the Transportation Commission, and of course, the many transportation projects that when you start looking at what this region needs transportation-wise, there's always more than the money that's there. So of course, they brought up new transportation ideas that they'd like to look at that they don't know where the funds would come from. They also looked at the Sandbags' role in the Redlands passenger rail operations and the review of options for how to run that rail project once it's completed, and the determination to recommend that there be a contract with Omnitrans and Metrolink for maintenance of way, dispatch, and other operations. That will also go to the board at in some of their next coming meetings. The two other meetings that I attended, one was the San Bernardino Valley Water District Advisory Commission on Water Policy. We received a presentation on Riverside Highland Water Company. It's a really interesting history that our water company has, and I think the biggest thing that I look at when I hear about this history is the way that our mutual water company, which is owned by all of the residents here, you are a shareholder in that water company so that you can have water. It started off as an agricultural water company and has moved into one that provides for residents. We have a system that was in place at the time of the switchover that had 39% unaccounted for water. And that was in 1985. So over 1.5 million gallons per day were lost due to water leaks in this system in 1985. The board of directors at the time decided that they needed to have a capital improvement project to upgrade the whole system within the city, and they did so. They were able to sell some land that they owned to put that money into the system that we have, and they have reduced, I'm going to read this to make sure I don't get it wrong, they've reduced unaccounted for water from a 39% to an average of 3% in the last 3 years. So our water company is really looking at the ways within their system to make sure we're not losing water. So when they're asking residents, please conserve and please watch how you're watering your yards, it's not that they didn't start with their system first. It's just, to me, a real incredible story. There's more to it, but I'm not going to go into it because time is limited tonight. We also looked at enhanced infrastructure districts within the San Bernardino Valley Water District. We looked at Valley District's hydroelectric generation projects. Some of the projects that they use for their water, they're looking at ways to take the water that comes through the system, generate electricity so that it can run the pumps, so that it's not a draw against our power grid. We also received an update of drought conditions, and as you can imagine, this is one of the driest years. This year's snowpack in the north set a new historic low, and last year was also one of the lowest on record. Due to drought conditions, some local underground storage levels are at historic lows, and while the storage levels are expected to go up in wet periods and down during drought periods, there's of course no way to predict it. But what they did say is that there's an estimated over 40 inches of extra rainfall that would be needed above normal to refill our local groundwater basins. So in other words, as a comparison, average rainfall in the area is around 16 inches, and the storms this summer that we had provided about 2 inches of rain. So the area would need to receive about 20 storms like the ones we had this summer. What they're saying, though, is fortunately when the rain comes, it will fill our underground basins as quickly as 3 years if it falls in the way that it needs to. So we in this region have a way of recharging our groundwater. We just need that El Nino to come in as it was. But due to diversity of our local water portfolio and careful planning of our water agencies, we here in this region are not in a severe drought emergency like some others throughout the state, and we do not plan on being in a position of running out of water this year or next year. So based on the management that the Valley District has been doing, we still are in a good position, but we do need to conserve. And lastly, and very shortly, I attended the oversight board for our successor agency to the former Grand Terrace Redevelopment Agency. On that agenda was our recognized obligation payment schedule, 15-16B, in the amount of $1,343,240, and it was adopted by unanimous vote of the board members that were present. Thank you all for your attention. we'll move on to our next agenda item. We have no public hearings. We do have an item of unfinished business, which is the cooperative agreement between City of Grand Terrace and the City of Colton for the Lacadena Drive Lytton Avenue traffic signal project. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Saba Engineer, Community Development, Public Works. With me, I have Amir Jakar, the Public Works Director from City of Colton, to assist me in answering any questions that comes up. Honorable City Council, this staff report is to request City Council approve cooperative agreement between the City of Grand Terrace and City of Colton regarding the installation and maintenance of a traffic signal at the intersection of Lacadena Drive and Lytton Avenue, and also authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. This staff report supports City of Grand Terrace 2030 vision, goal number 2, maintain public safety, and also goal number 4, develop and implement successful partnership. On September 8, 2015, staff presented the cooperative agreement between the City of Grand Terrace and the City of Colton to the City Council for the approval. The Council requested the copies of the traffic engineering reports before taking any action on the agreement, and the copies were provided to the City Council. The City of Colton conducted a series of traffic engineering studies at the intersection. In 2013, an evaluation report for all-way stop control warrant was prepared, and based on the posted speed limit of 50 miles per hour on Lacadena Drive, a side distance deficiency was determined. A follow-up evaluation report was prepared to determine if the speed limit on Lacadena Drive can be reduced to mitigate the side distance deficiency. The speed limit did not change based on the evaluation. Later, a traffic control device warrant assessment was prepared. The traffic signal was warranted mainly based on the peak hour traffic volume, with the recommended mitigation to reduce this to the side distance deficiency by moving the location of the stop bar on Lytton Avenue closer towards the Lacadena Drive. However, by moving the bar towards the intersection, we will create more safety concerns, since the traffic on Lytton Avenue will be more exposed to high limits, high speed traffic traveling south on Lacadena Drive. In addition, Colton staff anticipates more peak hour traffic due to the potential development along Lytton Avenue on the west side of the intersection, and due to the improving economy that will further supporting the signal. The City of Colton is committing to install a traffic signal at the total project cost of $150,000, and requesting the City of Grand Terrace to support the signal construction, cover the routine signal maintenance cost, and also help in the minor repair for a period of 30 years, while the major repair will be shared by the two jurisdictions. To define the role of two cities, a cooperative agreement was approved by the Colton City Council on August 4th, 2015, and construction contract was awarded. Now, expected routine maintenance cost will be approximately $1,400 per year and will be triggered until the completion of the one-year maintenance period that will be provided by the contractor. And this will be budgeted in 2016-17 fiscal year through gas tax fund. Staff is requesting City Council to approve the cooperative agreement and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Again, I have Colton Public Works Director Amir Jakar with me to assist me answering any question. This concludes staff presentation, and we are open to the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Engineer. Does council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have only a couple of questions. I just want some clarification. I was the one that I suppose specifically requested the warrant, and the way I read the warrant, it appears as if there are several opportunities to adjust. One of them being a difference in speed limit, and maybe some rebuilding of the wall in one location. On the Colton side, I do know that for a fact that when this wall was built, it was not advisable from the city of Grand Terrace standpoint, but it was done anyway. So that probably perpetuated a bad situation. I guess my question really is what is our benefit here? Because I understand that Colton has created a condition and aggravated it by some other work in the middle of La Cadena. And now, the way I add this up, this is a $44,000 ticket for us to do extended maintenance on this. So I'm not exactly sure why it would be recommended that we approve this deal.
Existing condition is a safety hazard and it's a liability for the two cities, City of Colton and also City of Grand Terrace, because both cities share this intersection. And it's a combined jurisdiction. In order to answer more technical question, I would request Amir to assist me, Public Works Director from City of Colton.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members. My name is Amr Jakar. I am Director of Public Works at City of Colton. Just to respond to the question that was raised a few minutes ago, the wall that's built at the corner of Layton is not the issue, it's the slope. The wall was built about 8 or 10 years ago, and it cuts the slope slightly and actually provides additional sight distance. The issue actually arose when we did a stop sign analysis for that intersection. When we looked at it, we found that stopping sight distance, which is when you look to your right as you come to the stop, and the car is approaching at 50 miles per hour, what's needed is about 530 feet. What we have available is 260 feet because of the slope that's there now. That was one issue. The cars don't travel 50 miles per hour. I actually drove in that way right now. And I was driving up, there was a car, I was driving about 50 miles an hour, and there were a couple of cars that passed me up. Now those cars would take about 700 feet to stop. So even if we corrected some of the issues by moving the stop bar to the east, we wouldn't correct all of them. We would not be able to stop the vehicles that are traveling very fast. The other thing is that intersection lies half in the City of Colton, half City of Grand Terrace, and that's the reason this agreement is there here in front of you. Normally in a situation like this, half the maintenance is paid by each city. So City of Colton pays half the maintenance and the City of Grand Terrace pays half the maintenance. In this case, what we had talked to City of Grand Terrace staff and realized that they did not have the money to fund the construction of the intersection, the signal. So we are fronting the cost of the intersection, the signal itself, but we're requesting that the City of Grand Terrace for 30-year pick up Colton's share, so which is half of whatever your $1,400 maintenance cost is, half of that would be Colton's share throughout the years. We think it's a fair trade because there's a lot of traffic that's coming from Colton. Our city council looked at that, took that into consideration when they approved this agreement. And the other thing I would like to add is the stop bar that's there, it's in City of Grand Terrace. The problem that exists in City of Colton. To keep the signal clear, the intersection clear, it's very difficult. We have no control over painting your stop bars. You have no control over cleaning our side of the street to keep the visibility there. The third thing is the cost of the improvements that would have gone in, putting the pork chop in, moving the wall back would have been very close to the signal cost. So therefore, doing all that would have created a lot of problems with the residents exiting that area, but would not have resolved the issues. We think the signal resolves all the issues. In the long term, it's the best solution for that site.
In reading the reports, though, it seemed to me that the recommendations that were made by the engineering companies, the stoplight was the very last thing they said to consider. They had a lot of other things that they would have recommended before putting in a stoplight. And I'm curious what the distance is between the proposed stoplight and the current one on Barton and La Cadena.
I believe it's a quarter mile, if I'm not mistaken. There were two things that were considered. One was the installation of a stop sign. That's bulk of the studies, as you see, are looking at stopping traffic.
Correct, and they didn't recommend putting stop signs. I understand that, but in the list of recommendations, I didn't see in either report that they said to put in a stoplight. They recommended other remedies before that.
The remedies that they were proposing don't help with the stopping sight distance.
Why would they recommend them then?
Because they were restricting they were looking at a speed limit that's 50 miles per hour, which is posted speed limit. But it doesn't account for people that are traveling faster than 50 miles per hour. We do not want to move the stop bar closer because you'll be, as you come to a stop, sometimes people roll in over the bar. And if you roll over the bar, you would end up in the travel lane. So that was a concern that we had. The other thing was by making people go south and making them make U-turns at Barton, would have created additional problems. If somebody would have gotten hurt trying to make a U-turn coming back, going north, then we would still have that issue because the design that they had was to put in pork chops. Those pork chops are very expensive. Those are fairly expensive to build, so we'd have to redo the street sections there, do construction city of Grand Terrace, do construction city of Colton, and to be able to do that. Now the cost of that, we did a cost estimate on the pork chops and the wall, and they were about $130,000 to $140,000. Off of that, about $50,000 would have been Grand Terrace portion to do the improvements. So Grand Terrace didn't have the money, so therefore we did not go through the design process and do all of that. Grand Terrace did not have the money to put into the improvements.
Can you see the stoplight signal from Lytton when you were at that intersection? Or when you're driving through that intersection, can you see the stoplight at La Cadena and Barton?
I believe so.
Okay, so there's going to be a stoplight that's going to go in there, and it's going to be confusing to motorists as they come through when one of them's red and one of them's green. I think that creates a hazard if they're that close. Especially if you have your motorists who you say are going faster than speed limit. They're going to have a difficult time determining that the one stoplight that they're looking at is for a particular intersection, and they probably would blow through it thinking they had a green light.
Yeah, I can see your concern. The way the stoplights are designed is when we look at a signal head, we mount it in a way so there is a field of vision that allows for that to be looked at. So if you're looking at it would be very difficult to confuse the Lytton signal with Barton signal because of the distance that's there and because of where they would be located on the street. So you would see it. I mean, it's no different than if you travel on any other street where there are a couple of signals in a row.
Right, and they're very confusing. That's why I have that theory. It's very confusing when you have streetlights that are stacked up like that, especially on a long expanse of road where there aren't any controlled intersections.
But those things, that's
okay. Anyway, that's just my concern. Do any of the council members have any other questions?
I have a question.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Would it be an option for us to look at for you to look at reducing the speed opposed to putting in a stoplight? Would that be maybe a better alternative at this point?
And that's a good point. That was the first thing we looked at. But by state law, we're supposed to post the speed limits by a standard where we go out there and we count the cars and we post a speed limit that's traveled by the 85% of the people or below. That happened to be 50, and that's where we posted it at 50 again. So even if we posted a speed limit less than 50, we wouldn't be able to enforce it because it wouldn't be within the state guidelines.
Well, it sounds like there's not much enforcement going on now if you have cars that are traveling beyond the 50, which is recommended, and that seems to be your basis for bringing this to us.
And that enforcement is, we brought that up in our city. It's been brought up several times, and the city does go out there and address that. But it is a long stretch of road which is at times not heavily traveled and allows people to speed.
Yeah, it really, I've read through this a couple of times. The information seems conflicting to me. It doesn't seem like there's sufficient to actually warrant putting in the stop sign. And then, I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Wilson, a stop light. I'm still confused to how we arrived at making the recommendation of putting it in. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Councilmember Hussey.
I don't have really a question. I went down there because I was curious about the drawings and came out the information. I drove by Linton Street 100 times. I wanted to see how the traffic flow was, and 'cause one of your areas was the high flow traffic, and I went down there during the high flow traffic. And yes, I did find it. It took like 3 or 4 minutes to make a left-hand turn on Linton, and if I was making another left to go back to La Cadena, it took an additional 5 minutes and hope to, and that's avoiding traffic. So that was just I just wanted to look at that observation, but that's all I had, Mayor, just my comment.
Councilmember Wilson.
I just want to point out that you have nearly the same condition in front of Pinnacle Peaks. And unfortunately, when you've got a 50-mile-an-hour raceway where people run 70 miles an hour instead, you're going to run into that circumstance. I don't know that a traffic light back-to-back is going to help the situation.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I think what's difficult for me as a non-engineer is when I'm presented with something that kind of says, no, this isn't the solution, and then the staff recommendation, this is the solution. So I really have a difficult time with that. So I'm really just asking staff not to bring me something like this again. This has been, throughout the 3 years I've been here, something that's kind of been discussed. It was something that said, no, we didn't need it. Then it was said, yes, we do need it. So when this came without the traffic study, or the correct term that Mr. Wilson brought up, the warrant, I wasn't comfortable acting on something that I didn't have the background. But I never expected it to be like this. And so it's really hard for me to vote on something when I don't have the confidence in the report, is my final topic to say on that.
Mayor, if I might.
Mr. City Manager.
Yes. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, the city manager. Mayor, the item before the council tonight is not whether the traffic signal should go in or not. That has already been determined by the city of Colton. They've already awarded that contract for construction. The item before the council tonight is whether the city is going to pay for the maintenance of that particular project. City staff did not support or endorse the traffic signal going in. I came in, and I think I was the third city manager to address this particular issue. I sat down with the community development director. We contacted the engineer who did the original study, reviewed it for us, and his recommendation was, as the mayor indicated, that it wasn't the preferred way to resolve the item. The city of Colton, I met with the public works director and the city manager. They indicated that they were going to move forward and fully construct the traffic signal. The city manager requested that because the traffic signal is in the city of Grand Terrace, that we, at a minimum, bring the item forward to the council to see if the council will be willing to pay for the maintenance. That is the extent of what the item is before the council tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess I'm asking legal counsel then, what exposure do we have on this?
Certainly no exposure merely for denying or approving. I think the concern is over accidents that would be happening in the right-of-way, and that's a very difficult answer to question without knowing specific facts of what could happen. If there's speeding, certainly, I mean, there's always liability if the city's in a negligent condition, but does not sound like that's what's being discussed.
Mr. Hussey.
Okay, I understand all this, but here's one concern. City of Colton's putting up the traffic signal. They're asking the City of Grand Terrace to help maintain the traffic signal. As two cities close hand in hand, do we maintain our relationship with the City of Colton to help them out on that and possibly help our residents in that area? That's what my main concern is. I understand the studies, I understand our concerns, but that's just my main concern on how we're working together, like we did work together on the sewer, and how we have residents in that area. Me personally, I don't see, the residents there, they're the ones making the turns, they're the ones driving that area, and I'm concerned about their safety.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and thank you, Mr. Jakar and Ms. Engineer. I'm going to open this up for public comment if there's anyone that would like to speak on this item. My first speaker is Joe Nero.
Hi, my name is Joe Nero. I live in Colton, California, and I just want to say that I support the recommendation for the city manager to, with the cooperative agreement with the city of Colton regarding this traffic signal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nerio. All right. And the second speaker slip I have is for Colton Council Member Isaac Suchel. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And Mr. Hussey is actually correct, and the whole goal of this item was to bring an environment of safety for the residents, your residents as well as our residents. And how do we get there was the council agreed, well, we'll just pay for the whole thing, and if we can just get a Grand Terrace to agree just to pay a portion of the maintenance, we'll all do fair. Because to me, there is a liability there in both cities. There's no denying that, and that's why this is before us, before you guys here. And this is step one of many steps. This step just happens to involve Grand Terrace. We're also putting a signal at Rancho and La Cadena, and in the area by Pinnacle Pete, because our goal is to slow down the traffic. Reposting the speed limit below guidelines is not going to work. Once the lights get put in, you will see a calming effect down South La Cadena. And that is the goal of the city. And I think it's the goal of your city also, as indicated in one of your staff reports, to maintain public safety. And then your second goal, develop successful partnerships with local agencies, as us. So we're partnering up together regionally to make that a safe corridor. And this is step one, and then the other steps are coming also. So I urge the council to go along with this, and that's why I came here, because I felt that's how important it was to make sure that there's clarity, that nobody's trying to get in over anybody else. We're not trying to do anything that's not supposed to be done. Engineering warrants the signal light now for safety, and that's our main priority, is safety, because how much can you put a price on one's injuries? And there's been quite a few down South La Cadena. So I urge the council to go along with the staff's recommendation, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for calling me forward.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember. All right. Any other requests to speak? Go ahead and come forward, and please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Bobby Forbes, 11850 Burns Avenue, Grand Terrace. As a realtor working the area and as a resident that I can hear the drivers on La Cadena Drive, it's scary in the middle of the night. I can hear them coming down so fast, racing, and I hear them lose control and they go spinning down the street. I wait for sometimes before I make the 911 call, I wait to hear the crash. but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just call and I ask for the Colton PD to come down the street and check the place out, because I know there's accidents there that we don't get reports on. I can hear them. I would like us to follow the recommendation to service that, whatever it is that they need. I'm happy to hear about the different red lights, the signal lights that are going to come in. We need them. They fly down there, myself included on occasion, and I frequent the area. You know, I'm in and out of there all the time. There's a lot of houses over there that belong to Grand Terrace. It's not just Colton. We need to take care of Grand Terrace residents, Colton residents, and everything in between that kind of falls between the railroad tracks, all of that area. The traffic is fast moving. There's a lot of it. People do not care about the houses that are along there. So let's slow them down by traffic signals. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have another request to speak. If you would state your name, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's Jeff Allen, Brentwood Street in Grand Terrace. So I could understand the concern that council members are having with the multiple traffic lights. And when I heard the member of Colton Council, there he is, talk about the calming, calming of the traffic. I used to live in an area that used traffic calming devices other than traffic lights, and they were very effective. And I would encourage you to explore those. You know, they're unconventional here because we're so dependent on traffic lights and stop signs. But we're going to be putting in a turning circle soon anyway, and that is one type of traffic calming device. So there are options out there that can slow the traffic down on La Cadena other than traffic lights. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other member of the public who would like to speak? Okay, seeing no takers, I will close public comment. I'll bring it back to council for their discussion and consideration of a motion. Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I just want to draw attention to packet page 37, the recitals. And so 2.2 says, Colton and Grand Terrace have jointly determined that intersection improvements and traffic signal are warranted at this intersection of La Cadena and Linton Avenue. And then it says we recognize the benefits. So my issue is we're not really just talking about maintenance. We're also saying in our recitals, we're saying it's warranted. I'm in a difficult position because as the rest of us here, we're the caretakers of the city's pocketbook. So it's not anything having to do, because the easiest thing and the thing that I really, really want to do is to have a good relationship with the city of Colton. So I need to think this out with my peers. It's something I want to support. But I also don't want to see us do these kinds of decision making when you have engineering studies that say, well, I don't recommend this, and then we're proceeding with it. I have a real problem with it. And I have a problem that we're at this point without having the backup material, and then we get the backup material, and it's a little bit different than what we're saying it is. It's not just maintenance. It's also saying that it warrants the traffic thing. I'm soothed by Councilman Suchel's remarks about looking at it globally, because there is going to be opportunities to look at it globally with the freeway interchange. Makes me more comfortable that there's going to be initiatives to have, calming signalization effect on that. So it's more the conflict I have is I'm comfortable where the city of Colton's headed with it. I'm not comfortable on how we got here.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
I'm not sure if we know the answers to these questions, but with the information that Colton is moving forward with installing the light, do we know when that light will go in and when the subsequent lights will go in?
Mayor, Councilmember, this light will be built in about 4 months. Along with the light on traffic light on La Cadena and Rancho. We're doing the traffic study right now and doing the design for the one on La Loma, and there's another one on M Street. And those will come in about 9 months from now.
And may I ask, in both of your professional experience, would the light that's going to precede the proposed light, I guess both lights in both directions, would they then mitigate the issue for the proposed light going in? I don't know if that's make. So if you're going to place one here and one here, would it eliminate the need for the one here? Have we thought, as the council in Colton thought about that?
Only if we eliminated the left turn out of Lytton, then it would do that. So if you took that median and then extended it through Lytton and didn't allow a left turn, because the way the signal is warranted, it's warranted off of people making left turns from Lytton onto La Cadena. And so they would be limiting that movement. And that would raise a lot of concerns with the residents because they'll have to go around long ways to get out of the area. So it really couldn't be done just by the signal light, not putting the signal light in. It would have to be some other work done on the roadway.
Some other modifications.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, got you. I think it's important for me to state for the record, Mr. Switchell and Isaac, that I personally look to be a good partner as a council member with Colton, and I think we've demonstrated that in the past, and we will continue to demonstrate it moving forward. We'll make decisions that are good for both of our residents. I would like to support this. I am uncomfortable, especially now looking back at the recital, how it's worded. I think I would be more comfortable if we were to reword that slightly. And I don't know if we could vote on that now, or do we have to wait for the recital to be rewritten? Maybe that can be explained a little.
Well, you bring up the issue, though, of the other traffic lights that are going to go in, and I go with Mayor Pro Tem and say, you know, we have been given, first this was brought to us without any backup information, and then when we asked for the warrants, they came and they don't support it, and now we're being told, well, that doesn't matter because they are warranted anyway, even without these studies. I want to know if we do if those other two signals go in, what does an engineering study look like for that? Because there are other ways to mitigate this. So as much as I care about the safety of our residents, I also care about the traffic flow, and I don't want people running lights because they're frustrated with the amount of lights that are backed up on each other. And I also don't like the recital and the way that it's written. So thank you for letting me interject, and Mr. City Attorney.
Madam Mayor, if I could just address regarding a motion, certainly. A recital in the contract could be amended by a motion, certainly.
And I think it's important to know whether or not we decide that it was a good idea or a bad idea. Colton has moved forward with having that light installed. We are basically supporting the share in the maintenance of the light. I think we need to.
Okay, but in the spirit of let's have a cooperative relationship with our next door neighbors, then it seems to me that we should have been part of the conversation before they came and said, well, we want you to pay for the maintenance.
I have no rebuttal. I agree.
I wonder what the opportunities are to try to deal with this on a more global basis, meaning let's factor this all in with everything that we're doing as far as the freeway and the whole concept of.
Should we put a traffic circle there?
Yeah. Well, you know, because I appreciated you mentioning about Sandbag, because I was in the county long enough to see when Sandbag was a handful of people and it just morphed. And I mentioned to you going to SCAG. SCAG says they're going to be the premier transportation agency in Sandbag. So as a council person, I'm like, well, who's in charge? And then two, how do we access things that we want to talk about? And maybe this is something that we could start getting our toes wet on a council of government kind of discussion, because it's hard to solve these issues in a vacuum. So we maybe can meet with Sandbag people and see how can we just make this part of the overall plan out there.
Mayor, may I be called upon?
I was thinking on what Mayor Pro Tem was saying. Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm still trying to understand if we involve other parties, how is that going to change the outcome of what has already been determined?
That's a good point.
I mean, I guess we would probably have further information one way or the other, but it still doesn't change the decision that we need to make,
Mr.
whether it
City
be tonight
Manager.
or later.
Yes. And so, Mayor, to come back and reiterate the fact that, so the conversation that staff had with Colton was, no, we can't find that the studies support the city spending money to construct the light. However, because of the partnership that we have, they requested that we bring the item to the council to have the discussion of whether the city would want to pay for the maintenance. So the purpose of staff bringing this, and I'm sorry it's so uncomfortable, was to bring this forward to have that discussion to see if the city were willing, because they initially started out with an estimate of a $200,000 construction. We had our engineer review it. We looked at the warrants, determined that it was not something that we could support. We had the conversation when I came on board. We said, I talked to the engineer. He said, it's not something that, there's other ways to go around this. Colton decided that it was the best interest of the city and safety for them to move forward with the complete construction of the project. So yes, staff knew that they were going to move forward with the project. We agreed to come forward and ask the council to support through the maintenance. The contract that you have before you today is a document written by the city of Colton that came forward. You certainly have the ability to modify that contract. So, and once again, I know this is uncomfortable for you guys, but the only way to have the discussion with everyone is, unfortunately, at this table.
So, Mr. City Manager, I think you answered the question that Mayor Pro Tem had. Is it wasn't brought forward to us prior to this point by our staff. Our staff has been having discussions, and this council didn't know about those discussions that they were having with City of Colton. So for this body to see this project in this state at this period, that has made it difficult for us as a council. It has made it very difficult for us as a council.
So you're saying that the council didn't know about the project and the construction?
Not formally.
Okay.
And this is the first I'm hearing that Colton has just decided to do it.
Okay.
I understood that there was some discussion about whether it could be done or whether it was warranted, but it never came formally to this body. Councilmember Mitchell.
I do recall conversations. I'm not sure that they were in council or outside of council, but I do remember having a personal conversation with Isaac on this. And then I do believe there may have been one time where it was presented, but I don't remember what facts were around that, what exactly was presented to us, because I do recall early on going into my seat, as Sylvia Pro Tem Mayor referenced earlier, this was brought at some point to council, but I don't remember the action around it. So it's not like we're totally unaware of it. I think what we're all surprised at is the fact that it had already been determined without our involvement that the light would go in, or is in the plans of being purchased and installed.
So we'll have to put in some mechanisms that when staff is having some conversations with other jurisdictions, that we at least get that back to you, because I'm just not very happy that we placed this discussion that was going on a year before I got here. Right. And and I've followed the same recommendation as the previous city managers to say we can't spend our proceeds on this. It's not warranted at this time. So I'm just and I'm learning that you weren't privy to those conversations ever at a formal council meeting.
Well, there's been a change in the council, and when I came on board, there was, it wasn't violating the Brown Act, because there's probably 2 members of the previous council that were engaging in conversation with I don't know how many members of the Colton City Council. So prior to us continuing on with negotiations on the water issue, the council had talked about the problems of the Brown Act and being very cautious about that, and formalizing having an ad hoc committee of who would be the 2 people dealing on an ad hoc basis with the city of Colton. So we haven't had that discussion because one council member might have mentioned to me that this was being discussed, but there was never, and a previous city manager had mentioned in a briefing that this was being discussed, but I never sat in a meeting where there was 2 council members or any representative of the Colton City Council or any telephone tree, nothing. It was kind of there in the periphery. So this is the first time that we're deliberating or hearing the full thing. So I think what, when we get to our strategic thing as the new councils that we have to be cautious of is how we interact with other bodies, because then we get into them thinking we have some kind of agreement when we can't do any agreements or deliberations until we're all here.
I guess my biggest issue with this is I believe in the safety of our residents, and we did have a Grand Terrace resident come and tell us that there is some sort of necessity warranted to look at La Cadena, at least with respect to the speeding. But during public comment, we had members of our city who came to us with traffic problems, and they want us to look at the resources that we have available and apply that within the neighborhoods that they came to speak about. And yet here in front of me is something that somebody outside of our city has determined should take precedent over what people spent their time coming and speaking about tonight that's been going on in their particular neighborhoods. And I guess that's my problem with this issue right here. And how to get out of the intractable issue of, well, it's not really up to us whether the stoplight is warranted, but it is, because if we're saying, yeah, we're going to pay maintenance on it, that is us saying, yes, we think you should put in a stoplight. And it really has nothing to do with the relationship between the city next door to us. It really has to do with the way that this is jumping the line with us being able to look at the whole of Grand Terrace and say, where do our traffic mitigation dollars need to go first? This is saying this takes precedence by the fact that it is right here in front of us tonight.
Well, I always want to add, something on that. Because I know that the intersection that our residents came and spoke about has been an issue before that we all individually looked at. On that, I would kind of have to set a protocol when a resident comes and it's something that we say, could staff bring it back? Should we order a traffic study? And I agree, are we jumping the line? Are we saying we're going to spend money here and we haven't even addressed the Van Buren issue? It's just one issue. It's a learning experience for us.
Councilmember Hussey.
One is, if it was approved, what fund would that be coming out? It wouldn't be out of the general fund.
It's out of the gas tax.
Gas tax.
Okay, another thing what the mayor mentioned when we had the residents speak tonight, and we do a traffic study on that, and it comes out with it's not warranted to have speed bumps, and we're back in the same predicament. Are we going to go by our conscience and know what the traffic's like and vote on that, or are we just going to go by the warrant because the residents came up and said, hey, we know you paint the crosswalk, we know you put a yellow line in there, but we still have people running the stop sign, we still have people flying down the street. We do a traffic study, and the next thing you know, hey, it's not warranted. So what do we draw a line? Where do we, we make that decision as a council to say, yes, I see this warrant right here, and that we're going to go ahead and take care of our residents? That's one of my concerns.
Right, there are other streets in this city that have speed bumps, and people still run the stop signs. So if a traffic engineering study is saying something's not warranted, there has to be a really good reason for
And
it.
I understand that. Something that could come back as
Oh, I
something
know.
that's not warranted.
We're talking the difference between a structural engineering issue and human behavior.
Exactly. Well, that's why I brought it up, because you mentioned about the residents there. So that's why I'm using that example. So it's not coming, it's coming out of the gas tax if it does get voted for.
And so, Mayor, if I might, and what we can do is, every one of the items that you've discussed regarding the street issues, we've actually done work on those items. One of the things I was just asking Sandra if we have it on the report backlog. Those items are not on the report backlog because we didn't put them directly on there. That's your kind of weekly update on things that you asked for. But we're very close to bringing something forward to the council on each one of those particular streets. One of the things that we're doing, and obviously we're behind on it, is giving you a monthly report for each department. That would show up on that log. So we are doing that. And Mayor, also just to kind of comment on your question, your statement regarding cutting the line. And so I understand the point of the taking responsibility for each area when citizens bring items before you. So one of the potential solutions the council might have, if the council is uncomfortable with supporting the entire amount, if the council is comfortable with this is a partnership 50-50, and if maintenance can be supported by both parties, that's also another option. If the council wants to even go in that direction, because a portion of this intersection is in the city and a portion is in Colton. So if you want to you have the option to modify the contract as you want. If they don't want to accept that, that's another issue. But you certainly have the ability to do that.
Okay, Councilmember Wilson.
May I propose a solution here? This just seems to me like the neighbor that decides he's going to build a block wall on the side yard, and he comes to you and says, "Here's what your share is." But the important thing to me is it might be noteworthy for our cross-referencing on the overall traffic problem as to whether Linton Street was always in this condition. Because I've been around here for a long time, like 35, 40 years, and I remember something about the median being changed, and the traffic got diverted to that Linton condition. So it hasn't always been like that. We didn't do it that I know of. So it might be worthwhile, and maybe that's the tiebreaker to determine whether we go forward.
Okay, what would we like to do with this item?
Is there a possibility that we can push it out or table it until after the construction of the lights, and then we come back and reevaluate it based on a more current warrant with the new stoplights in? And if we agree that any portion of payment or maintenance is agreed upon with the council, that we can maybe make it retroactive or something like that, we can become creative. I think we need to move on. I think we've
Well, I think it comes down to, are we going to pay the maintenance for this or not? And the decision is either made tonight or it's not, because down the road it's going to be the same decision and we're probably going to have the same discussion. So what would the council like to do with this item that's before us tonight?
Well, before we move on, I have to just say one thing for clarification on how, because I've lived out here for 30 years on Palm. One day I'm going down the street and I get stopped for going 35 miles an hour because a former city councilman without a traffic study decided they were going to change the speed limit on Palm. So I was angry. I got a speeding ticket. So spoke to a traffic engineer. 85% of the people travel there. Some are going to break the law, but you go through that range. But the thing is what I don't want to be in the position of is that I'm doing things based not on engineering reports and professional recommendations. I'm doing things based on relationships and getting creative so creative, I don't understand where we're going. So it has nothing to do with, because I'm not going to do what that other city councilman does and just say, well, someone came, and so we're going to put a speed bump. You know, I'm going to depend on professional engineering study, and the recommendation has to be pretty strong. So the thing that we can do here today is we don't participate in the maintenance, and that goes up. So Colton's putting it up on our property, so there's still a concurrence, any way we look at it.
Mr. Jacker?
Yeah, Mayor, with your permission, I just want to clarify something. I am a professional engineer in the state of California. I have had 2 professional traffic engineers look at this intersection. We're not bringing this forward without engineering studies at all. Both of the traffic engineers, one of them is your traffic engineer now, has found issues with the signal, side distance issues, and our engineer, traffic engineer, has found a warrant for a signal that's met. That's the only reason we're here. Originally, this signal came up, stop sign at this location came up in 2006. We did the study at that time, and it wasn't warranted. So,
Could you please, sir, point to the area in these studies that we have?
Sure.
Because the reference that I saw in both studies indicated that there were other suggestions and recommendations prior to putting in a stoplight.
On page 9, and this is a traffic study prepared by Miniger and Associates, and it's dated September 27, 2013. There's a list of warrants, and under those, warrant number 2 for a traffic signal is met. I'm sorry, warrant number 3 for the peak hour, and that's off of the Lytton Avenue. And then warrant number 2 is very close to being met. Since 2013, we have approved additional project in City of Colton that has added traffic to that
Can you
area.
hold on one second? What was the first page that you referenced, please?
I believe it's stamp page
Page
62.
number 10. It's a traffic study by Miniger and Associates.
Are you reading from the city's packet?
I don't.
Okay,
Stamp page
well,
62.
Page 62?
Yes.
Okay, package page 59, which is page number 7 in that particular study, has the list of criterions 1, 2, 3, 4, and optional criteria. All of them have a red not met next to them. And then if I go to the page that you were indicating, packet page 2, the analysis comes and says all of them are warranted. The criterion has been met. Yet on page 7, all the criterion that was brought up in the study has a red capitalized not met. So I'm unclear as to how we have criterion that is outlined and clearly states that it's not met, but then later in the analysis you're using that as the reason for the traffic light.
Let me explain that a little bit, and I can see the confusion that's there. The first page 7, which you referred to, it's warrant for a stop sign. Stop sign warrant was not met. Page 10 is warrant for a traffic signal. When we went through the traffic signal warrant, we found that one of the warrants was met. See, in the way we approach this in Colton is when a request for a signal or stop sign comes in, it goes through a traffic committee, then it goes through a study, and if any other warrants are met, it's sent to the council for project development. And I did have a conversation with your city manager when he came on board, and I do take responsibility for asking him to put this on the agenda. And the reason we brought it this way is because we're fully funding the project. We found a study that says that the traffic signal is met. It's our responsibility as the lead agency in this case, because we were the lead agency, to proceed and try to find the funding. We did find the funding for the project. I did come to your city manager and I requested that we be allowed to move forward, and we put this agreement in front of you. And he's correct. You have the ability to either approve the agreement, approve a portion of it, or let City Colton do all the maintenance. But what we're not proposing is something that is not warranted. We will not do that because that would put City of Colton and City of Grand Terrace in a position of defending if something happens to somebody out there and the things are not warranted. This signal is warranted, and that's the only reason it's going in there. And I do appreciate the discussion that we've had. There are two things I would like to clarify. There was a street that was closed when the Barton signal was built. That street, that actual design was done by a county of San Bernardino. We annexed the area, and they had already done the design and done the project development. And we did build the project, but we were not the one designing the project. And we didn't like the Palm Street being closed. But the city, at that time, county did not want to fund another $150,000 to keep those two lanes open. So you are correct. I do recall that. The second thing is, City of Grand Terrace did look at this issue. City of Colton, due to the concern with the intersection, approved a stop sign, a temporary stop sign at that location. And City of Grand Terrace did not, and they denied it. And that's the reason we went back and asked council for funding for this project. So this was brought to the City of Grand Terrace, I believe it was 2013 or 2014 when it was brought to the City Council, or the City of Grand Terrace.
It came to the City of Grand Terrace, it did not come to the council.
I believe it was brought to the City Council. The stop sign was denied. Once the stop sign was denied at the City of Grand Terrace, our direction, or my direction from my city manager was to look for funding and proceed with the signal installation. And that's why we proceeded with the signal installation, because the stop sign was an interim measure until we get the signal done. And City of Grand Terrace did not approve that stop sign. So there is a lot of history to this project, but it is a signal that is warranted, and it's based on studies that are done by your traffic engineer and our traffic engineer.
Thank you. Okay, council, what would you like to do?
First, I want one last question. Who's our traffic engineer?
We have two traffic consultants, but the one that he's referencing is TEP Engineering, which is Craig Newstetter with Traffic Engineering Planning, Inc.
And where are they in our reports, our backup material?
The traffic engineer for the City of Grand Terrace did not prepare a report for Grand Terrace. The reports that you see in this study, our traffic engineer also was the consultant for the City of Colton. And so TEP was Colton's consultant as well. TEP prepared the first two studies you see attached to the packet for the City of Colton as their consultant. Subsequently, he was no longer their consultant, and Colton had a traffic signal warrant study prepared, and that was with Minigar.
Okay, so this is like who's on first. Okay, so don't want to talk about the stop sign.
Okay.
For this signal light, where's our opinion of our traffic engineer on this?
I believe she gave the staff report to us.
So then I think we're not ready again to deal with this tonight.
What would council like to do?
I'll tell you what my minimum is, having our independent traffic engineer's opinion and recommendation to us on this.
Madam Mayor?
All right. What is going to happen, though, is we don't have a say in whether this light's going in.
I know.
Colton has expressed the desire to put this light in, and they're asking us to pay maintenance. So with that being the issue before us, the traffic signal is going in. We've had a lot of discussion about whether we agree with the study that is saying that it's going to go in. And our opinion on that really is moot at this point. So what's before us right now is, will we be paying for the maintenance of this signal that is going in at Lytton and La Cadena?
Okay, so then I think we're back to amending the recital. So we're not saying that we warrant the traffic signal, we're just saying we're going to participate in paying for the maintenance.
That's all we're being asked to do. Is that the motion that you're making, that we
Yes.
amend it and that we participate in the maintenance of this signal, but we'd like to have a different cooperative agreement to state that we will be participating in that way?
Yeah, we're going to strike out that we have jointly determined that intersection improvements and traffic signal are warranted at the intersection.
So clarification, you're requesting striking of section 2.2 of the contract?
Correct.
The recital. Does the motion include a...
Package page 37.
And probably 2.3 has to be taken out too.
So section 2.3 as a,
2.2 and 2.3.
2.2 clearly is something that you wanted to strike out. Section 2.3 just recognizes the benefits of the signal. And certainly if you want to strike it out, you can certainly do that.
So it would read 2.1, the intersection of La Cadena Drive and Lytton Avenue is currently shared equally by Colton and Grand Terrace. And then 2.4 would become 2.2, the improvements to the intersection of La Cadena Drive and Lytton Avenue. See Exhibit A1, project location shall consist of installing a new traffic signal, striping, markings, and other necessary improvements. Parens the project.
I think, yeah, and that reflects what we're doing. We're not endorsing, we're just saying we're going to help pay for maintenance. Now, the recital, so when we're doing the motion, the recitals, knowing that this is going to be adequate, right, for you to do, for us to proceed?
Correct. So the motion would be to approve the contract with the revisions to the recitals as stated.
Is that the motion you're making?
That's the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to finish reading the second page.
In the meantime, Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Wilson.
packet pages 44 through 52 were generated by TEP.
Right, and that recommendation is do not install always stop controls at this time.
Amen.
Complete an updated speed zone study, determine if speed limit on La Cadena can be reduced to mitigate site distance deficiency for southbound La Cadena at Lytton Avenue. But from further discussion, I believe that they did follow that recommendation, and they went on and did the other speed study. Anything further, Councilmember Mitchell?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to approve with the changes to the recitals as stated earlier. We have a second. No further discussion. Please vote.
Motion passes 4 ayes, 1 no. Council members Hussey Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNaugle voted aye. Councilmember Wilson voted no.
Thank you. At this time, we will recess for 7 minutes.
Thank you.
now I'm going to go. All right. We will be resuming our meeting. Please find your seats. Staff, if you're ready, we will get started. I will thank my colleagues for the discussion that we had on the last item. That was an issue that unfortunately was a difficult one to have a discussion on, but I do appreciate your comments and your input and your discussion. And we will move forward with our new business. Item 5, appropriate $40,000 for regulatory and ADA compliance in existing city parks, and appropriate $110,000 and approve a professional services agreement with MIG Inc. for design, planning, management, communications, and technology services for assessment of existing city parks, their ability to support expanded recreational programs, design, planning, and cost estimates for the development of 3 new parks, a dog park, a skate park, and Blue Mountain Nature Trail. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mayor Magnabo, for the record, G. Harold Duffy, the city manager. So tonight we're going to talk about the City of Grand Terrace Open Space and Parks projects. So on the Open Space and Parks project, tonight we're going to cover an overview of tonight's presentation. We're going to talk about existing park systems purpose, compliance with health and access laws in the parks, capacity of existing parks, new parks, and how they're funded through the Quimby funds. And then at the end, we'll finish with some questions. We'll start off with how our existing parks and their purpose. So to meet the California standard is 4 acres of improved parkland per 1,000 residents. That's the current recommendation by California. The city currently has 16 acres of improved parkland, 25 acres of unimproved parkland that we own, 59 acres of school park and recreation land that we share through cooperative agreements, bringing our total of parkland open space to availability of about 100 acres. So if we look at this compared to the parkland standards, where city parkland averages per 1,000 residents, what is that? 1.2 acres based on the city's improved parkland, if you count it by itself. If you include 3.1 acres, if you include the unimproved parkland, let's see if I can get that. If you add that, it'll be 3.1 acres when unimproved parkland is added to the improved parkland. If you include the Colton Joint Unified School District's land in that, we have an average of 7.6 acres or open space per 1,000 residents in the city. So our goal tonight is to talk about the assessment of existing parks and recreation facilities, the capacity of existing parkland to service communities' current and future needs, and then the final report will be based on community engagement and park capacity. So before we start that, though, we need to talk about expansion. Before we talk about expansion of existing park programs or new parks, we must first address the issue of compliance with health and access laws. Richard Rollins Park and Pico Park have concession stands operated by community athletic leagues. The Grand Terrace Little League operates a Pico Park concession, and the Grand Terrace Soccer operates Richard Rollins concession stand. The California Retail Food Code requires that we meet certain standards in its purpose. 11370 of the purpose of this part is to safeguard public health and provide consumers food that is safe, unadulterated, and honestly presented through adoption of science-based standards. So this is part of the health code in terms of how food must be prepared for the public. So our goal here is to ensure concession stands meet the California Retail Food Code preparation standards, reduce city liability, and increase safety standards of food sold from city-owned concession stands. So we anticipate that bringing those facilities up to code would be no more than $20,000 for the city's cost to do that. Once again, although the leagues operate those concession stands and provide a great service, those facilities are actually city facilities, and the city could be liable if we don't bring those items up to code. Also, Pico Park is a new t-ball field with an accessible path, without an accessible path to all visitors. It is the only amenity that is not accessible to all residents. And so we'll show you a picture of what that looks like. So in order to, if you leave the basketball field, you'd walk along the grassy trail to get to the back of that particular facility. So that actually does not meet ADA, it's not ADA compliant. And so one of the things we'd like to do is to have a path built there. And we anticipate that cost to be more than $20,000. And we'll bring both of those items back to the council. So the action tonight for this particular section of the report is to appropriate the $40,000, and we'll bring any contracts back to the council for approval. With me tonight, providing who will be providing the work and the scope of work on these projects is MIG. I have Mr. Jim Pickle from MIG. They're a landscape and architectural design firm that will assist the city in bringing some of our parks some of our new parks to fruition. MIG will examine our existing park system and its capacity, assessment of existing parks and recreation facilities. They will engage citizens with special interest groups to talk about the park system and what it should look like by the year 2030. They will discuss the need to formalize or confirm existing park relationships to meet our community needs, and review non-competitive recreation requests. And that's an important component. We see parks and recreation programs, but there's also non-competitive use of parks, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. We hope to answer the following question. Are we meeting the needs of all of our residents' park and open space needs? Some of the deliverables will be community engagement. We'll talk to the youth athletic leagues. We will talk with adult athletic leagues. We will look at non-competitive recreational uses, like nature lovers and things of that particular nature. And so this is extremely important, and it also addresses the council's goals to ensure that we have an effective communication plan and that we reach out and develop partnerships. Now I'll talk about new parks. For years, there have been a discussion about a city dog park, skate park, and the Blue Mountain Nature Trail. Under new parks, under dog parks. So what's happening with the dog park, and why are we here tonight regarding the dog park? So currently the citizens have an active citizens group. The city has acquired the property through former redevelopment land, and the service to take this to the next level would be provided through performance services by MIG. Their scope of services would be site reconnaissance, base map preparation, conceptual site master plan, opinion on probable construction cost, and the final preliminary design report. Of the new park projects, this is the project that will anticipated to cost to get to the next stage about $46,000. When this park project is designed, at the end deliverable would be a construction packet that if the city had the funds to go out to bid, they could actually put this out to bid for construction. One of the most important components of this particular project is also to try to get this project to be shovel-ready, to be able to have it be able to be very competitive if the city were to submit this for grant applications. So here's a picture of the land that the city has recently transferred for the redevelopment agency transferred to the city for the dog park site. Another new park would be the skate park. Once again, this is the active citizens group regarding the skate park. And the skate park has an option to be on private or public sites that are available. The services will be performed, the scope of work will be performed once again by MIG Inc. Scope of services would include site reconnaissance, the base map preparation, conceptual site master plan, and opinion of probable costs. The construction costs. The difference between this particular project and the dog park is there currently isn't a permanent site that's been acquired by the city. There have been some discussions with Azure Hills to be able to utilize their particular site. There has always been some concern from members of the community about the skate park and liability to owning a skate park. But I can tell the council and the citizens there are many cities that have skate parks that operate effectively. And there are more cities that are actually sued from trip and fall on concrete paths versus they are being sued by skate parks. Another new park is the Blue Mountain Nature Trail. This is consistent with the city's conservation and open space element of the general plan. The city acquired 25 acres several years ago as a part of a potential site for a wilderness park, and that would be considered the best location to start the trailhead, and that's at the corner of Pico and, Sandra, help me out here, Pico and Van Buren, sorry. I'm lost.
From the audience, we heard Observation and Van Buren.
Sorry, lost that. And the adjacent land to that particular site is also available. That would create a 125-acre parcel. One of the things that the scope of work which MIG is going to be doing is looking at not only that particular area, but how do you increase it to a larger size to be able to access additional trails in nearby cities. Scope of services for MIG would be the site reconnaissance, the base map preparation, conceptual site master plan, and opinion on probable construction costs. So one of the things that as we move forward in the project, and Councilman, I think Hussey asked the question earlier regarding the impact to city's general fund. So this particular project would be funded by Quimby fees. And the Quimby fees balance currently is $303,000 and can only be used for park expansion or new parks and open space. Quimby fees are collected on all new development projects, and they're collected for the purpose of to ensure that balance of 4.1 acres per 1,000 residents in the city. And so cities try to maintain that balance through either getting developers to incorporate open space in their projects or to pay the Quimby fees for the city to acquire open space in the future. The Quimby fees cannot be used for maintenance of existing parks. It can be used for expansion of parks or the acquisition of new parks and open space. So with that, I am available for questions. And I have a few little more pictures here of different activities in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. What questions does council have of staff? I'm not seeing any.
Well, I just have a comment.
All right.
Well, first of all, this is excellent.
Mayor Pro Tem.
This is an excellent step forward. I had lunch with a resident, and I was talking about Grand Terrace is really maturing as a city, and this is going to be really exciting where we're headed as far as having more parks, more amenities, making this more of a refined city. The other thing I just want to make sure that the residents know is that I'm sure the people that live on Westwood, when we're talking about proceeding with this, just know that as we're going through this process, the opportunities to talk about how you're impacted with the parking, what we need to do to mitigate it, so this is going to be a process that we're going to put all our heads together and completely vet it so that we have an end product that we can all be happy with. And we also, you brought back forth to mind, is that we got to figure out if we're fortunate enough to get funding for these things, how are we going to pay for the maintenance? So that's something we're going to have to keep, in our compass as we proceed.
Councilmember Mitchell, did you have something to say? Okay. I thought you raised your hand earlier, and that's why I'm coming back to you. Councilmember Wilson. It's not the jackets, it's not confusing.
My hair doesn't look like yours at all. I wish it did. We're being asked in this particular portion to appropriate $110,000 in Quimby fees, which is exactly what they're for. What that will leave us with after we appropriate the $40,000 in regulatory and ADA upgrades to Richard Rawlins, and I believe those are definitely warranted according to the inspections that were made. That will leave us with a balance of about $153,000. That definitely won't build us parks. There's no doubt. It will not maintain parks either, for that matter. It is a step in the right direction, and I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. The only thing, the bargain in me says, I wonder if we want to spend $46,000 on a dog park. I have a dog. We have a park. It's right down the street, big old greenbelt area, and she's just jazzed when she can run down through the grass over there to the north of where we live.
You don't let her off a leash there, do you?
No, never. Never. So I'd never be able to keep up with her. Look at me. So that is something that I would like to consider. I'd also like to consider this, and I've already talked to the city manager about this. Didn't explore it really. There is such a thing as design build. And if we're able to take full advantage of a design build situation and still get what we need to be able to accomplish these parks, I think there's a pretty decent chance that at least one of them might kind of at least get started, and specifically probably the dog park. I don't think, because of the nature of the Blue Mountain Park, that we can really do some real damage there. But the dog park, which is what we are considering doing construction documents on, those construction documents would take us all the way up to the point where if we had the grant, we'd be able to go forward. So a design build sometimes, in my mind, runs about, especially in concept or whatever, is 10 to 15K plus or minus, and we're looking at a bill of $46,000 to get to construction documents. Landscape architects are good folks, but they also have a tendency to put a lot of money in design. That's what they get paid for, is paper. So I'm just introducing that idea. And last but not least, I noted in these prospective contracts that there is no topography included in any one of the services, and I would like to think that we would at least ask the question, how much you throw the topo in? Because I don't see how you design effectively without topography. There is an alternate for it, but this is a pretty substantial contract, and maybe we can get the topo slung in.
Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, Mr. Duffy, I know, as Councilmember Wilson said, as far as the funds, I know this is the beginning stages of these parks, but I'm sure the staff, are we looking into other grants, especially for the nature trail? I mean, does this state have something? Because it's going to be a recreation. It's going to be used throughout this whole Inland Empire. I mean, I'm sure we're going forward on that. And also a strong opponent of support, the $40,000. I mean, we tour, and I thank you for taking time out and touring that day for the parks and their concerns. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, if there are no more questions of staff at this time, I will open up to public comment. Do we have any request to speak forms?
Mayor, we also have, as I said earlier,
Thank you.
Mr. Jim Paquel here with MIG. So if the council has any questions regarding the proposal or any technical questions, he's certainly available to help answer those questions.
Okay, thank you. We will start with our first speaker, Michael Auld.
Mayor McNabo, council members, Mr. Duffy. My name is Michael Auld.
And I'm Bev Auld.
We live at 12710 Morato in Grand Terrace. We are 47-year residents of this city, board members of the Foundation of Grand Terrace, and current chairpersons of the Dog Park Committee. We're here tonight to urge the council to approve item 5 to use Quimby funds for their legal purpose to bring a better quality of life to our Blue Mountain City. Every citizen is a stakeholder in this issue. Seniors, youth, millennials, sports teams, parents, singles, couples, dog owners, business owners, and more. What makes this issue such a slam dunk for approval is that it simply involves the spending of already accrued funds for the exact purpose with no impact on the city budget. What could make more sense? Let's make our city more desirable and more accessible with a quality of life to be envied throughout the Inland Empire.
Please approve agenda item 5 for the good of all of Grand Terrace.
We had a few more people here this evening, one of whom was the president, the wife of the president of the foundation. Unfortunately, she had to take my granddaughter, her babysitter, home, so she's not going to be here to speak on behalf of her husband, the president of the foundation. But he is in full support of this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Auld. Our next speaker is Mark Severston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am the current president of Grand Terrace Little League, and I'm here to ask that you guys approve Amendment 5, that we get the funds for all the parks. Basically, I'm mostly concerned about Pico Park, which we use for our Little League organization. And most of you attended the opening ceremonies, which was a great time, wonderful day. But our concern is, one is our snack bar is to meet the new county guidelines that they want for health and safety. We are trying that. We already done some of the stuff that needed, but funds aren't there for everything that needs to be done. Next, our main concern is the path for handicap or seniors trying to get back to see their grandchildren play t-ball. We've been wanting to put a sidewalk back there since we built the park, and we almost got away with it, but we decided we shouldn't do it without approval. We wanted to do it. We were going to ask for forgiveness later, but we decided on the other. So we would just like to let you know, I mean, I've seen grandparents, trying to get back there. We had a handicapped parent in a wheelchair trying to get back to the back park, and with great difficulty he got back there. There's a lot of things that the park needs that we're limited in funds. The snack bar actually helps waive the cost of sign-ups, where we're not making the money, but the money we do make helps pay for some of the costs that we acquire through the league. Also, I also want to make sure that this dog park gets built. Mainly one reason. Every Saturday or during the week, we go out there and there's plenty of residents in Grand Terrace walking their dogs through Pico Park. and we have to go out with shovels and clean the fields up before the kids can go out and play. So I just want to address that issue. Skate park's very important to my son. He's 14, almost 14. And when he got real excited when he heard about it. So hopefully that goes through. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Severson.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much
Okay,
for your
thank you.
time. Our next speaker is Dan Flores.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Dan Flores, Senior Dan Flores. Just want to make that perfectly clear. You know what Dan Flores is speaking. And here with me is my wife, Gracie. My wife and I are asked the council to take a good look at item number 5. We believe item number 5 will be good for Grand Terrace and its citizens. Grand Terrace has always been a good city, and I always believed and thought this city was always good for raising a family. And this is why I moved here 23 years ago. But it's not, in the past, it's kind of not been where it should be, personally. And after hearing about this item 5, I thought this is the perfect opportunity for us to bring City of Grand Terrace back to where it used to be. I want it to be a good city. I want it to be a city where people would want to come live here. One time, if I remember correctly, there was, I don't know if it was the Fortune magazine that a few years ago said that Grand Terrace was one of the top 100 cities in the United States to live. I want that back. And I think one way of doing that is by working on this number 5. My wife and I plan to stay here and retire. We've been currently here for 23, 24 years. My wife is currently working, but when she retires, we plan to move from our big house and move to a townhouse and stay here in Grand Terrace. And I believe that by passing this number 5, we can do this. We can make the city better. And I want it to be a great city, not just for adults, but for family members. And I know it can be done if we all work together, and we will find the funds. We've done it. Grand Terrace has always found the funds. And I know we'll find the funds for the maintenance if we get the parks going. So if we all work together as a community, as the council, I know we can make these things happen for our kids. And I also want to get this park built because my dog, Toby, is 12 years old, and I don't know how much longer he's going to live, and I want him to have his park, and I've been working so hard with the park committee to get this park built. So hopefully we all can work together and get this project done, and it will benefit everybody in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Flores. Next speaker is Dwayne Zappi. Did I pronounce your last name right, sir?
Zappi's perfect, yes, thank
you.
you. Mayor, council members, my name is Dwayne Zappi, and I'm a 16-year resident of Grand Terrace, 22 years in Retchie Canyon on the other side of Westwood. Grand Terrace is a fantastic community with a wonderful quality of life. The opportunities that are presented with the Quimby are amazing. We have Pico Park, we have Rollins Park, we have the fitness park. With your action tonight, we would now be able to do improvements to the snack bar and to have proper access to the playing fields, but additional opportunities need to be realized. I am a dog lover. I have a family that loves to hike, and I am a grandparent of skateboarders. Grand Terrace already has the land for the dog park, so let's do it. Grand Terrace already has acreage at the trailhead of access to Blue Mountain, and I understand there are wonderful individuals who are ready to donate additional lands to complete the trail to the top of Blue Mountain. This access will be legal access with parking and facilities to provide hikers a relatively safe environment to launch their walks. So proceed with the planning of the park and get it done. Grand Terrace needs a place where the daring, mostly young people, can test their skateboarding skills. We owe it to our youth to provide an additional place to safely congregate and test and improve their skating skills. Let's prove to the youth that we care. The money available in this proposal is specifically for upgrading and improving existing parks and for the development of additional parks. I urge the council to adopt this proposal. A dog park, a Blue Mountain hiking park, and a skate park will enhance the quality of life in Grand Terrace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zappi. My next speaker is Jane Block.
Mayor, City Council members, the citizens of Grand Terrace and the surrounding community have worked for many years with the goal of preserving Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain is an important background for Grand Terrace, but it's also a very important background for the community in general. Grand Terrace's identification is very closely tied with Blue Mountain, and I think that Grand Terrace will be much more secure in its identity once Blue Mountain is all designated as a park, and I hope that will happen not too long. We are anticipating that your competent staff and your generous citizens will make this happen. I support the general manager's suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Block. Our next speaker is Dennis Kidd.
Mayor, council members, city manager, Dennis Kidd, 22874 Pico Street, Grand Terrace. I'm president of the Friends of Blue Mountain, and we strongly support the city manager's proposal to use the Quimby Park funds to do a study about the Blue Mountain Park. And I also support the use of those funds for the dog park study and the skateboard park study, and also a study of our current parks. And I also support using the Quimby funds to upgrade Rollins Park and Pico Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kidd. Our next speaker is Jackie Ralph.
Hello. I've lived in Grand Terrace for 30 years and raised 2 daughters who played in our local parks. I am also a PE teacher who believes that people should be physically active their whole life. Also, as a dog lover and a member of the dog committee, park committee 13 years ago, I'm still waiting for the park. Would love to see it happen. I do believe our quality of life depends on us having a variety of local resources, and everything proposed I wish you would please vote for, because great cities have great parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruff. All right, my next speaker is Laurel Rice, but I believe she's the one that has had to leave. So Joe Nerio is our next speaker.
My name is Joe Nerio. I'm a Colton resident, and I just want to say I just support the recommendations authorized by the city manager, and I believe that these parks would enhance the quality of life for the citizens of the Grand Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nerio. And the final speaker slip I have is for Robert Bond.
Hello, Mayor Robert Bond, 3026 Parvin Lane, Colton. I apologize for my attire. I didn't think I would make the meeting coming from work today. I am Vice President of Grand Terrace Little League. I've been on the board for several years now, 6-7 years. I was a resident of Grand Terrace since 2001, and I had to move out, but I moved back. I think Grand Terrace is a unique city in itself, separated by many others. We're small, we're more like a neighborhood community. Everybody looks out for everybody's kids and watches over everybody. I feel safe when my kids go down the street by the people that protect us and help save our lives. Thank you guys for providing a safe environment for my kids and many others to roam around the city. I appreciate that. One of the things about Pico Park, we lost a couple fields to the high school. We were running about 400 kids at the time in our league with the fields that we had. When we lost the fields to the high school, we went down to approximately 150 kids. Throughout the years, we have, and since I've been on the board, we've built our league back up, and we are running approximately 325 kids now. I think with these improvements that we are looking to do to our snack shack and to our fields, it sends them, and not only to our fields, to our community in general with the dog park, the skate park, it's going to send a sense of compassion to the community that we still care. We're providing these environments for our city and our community. And I know every year we get more kids and more kids coming back to Little League because they see the changes that we make. They see the changes that are made at the parks, Rawlings Park for soccer as such. And it continues to grow by providing these funds to accommodate the necessary things that need to be done. We're providing a much safer environment for our kids to put more of them in a place where they can be trained and developed for our high school sports and also just know where they're at and they're safe. And I would really like this Amendment 5 to pass. It would really help us out as we were going to provide the funds for the ADA handicap sidewalk, but there was technicalities and things that we needed to see first as far as codes and such. But if these funds could be approved, that would take the burden off of us to improve that part of it, but also allow us to take those funds and put back into our fields and other aspects of our league as we do every year. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. That was my last request to speak. Form, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Please state your name for the record.
Jeffrey McConnell, concerned citizen, Walnut Avenue. This is kind of like a culmination. I've been in town for 15 years, and as many of you know, I'm extremely involved in the community on many levels. And over the years, I've learned that this is part of the fabric of Grand Terrace, as you may know. I recall 10 years ago going to some of the city council workshops where Sylvia Robles and myself were the only ones sitting in the audience pushing for more youth sports, and I believe skateboard was on the list that we talked about. In the early 2000s, I was editor of the Blue Mountain Outlook for 6 years, and that's how I really got to know Grand Terrace. I would go to the soccer games, Little League games, and when I took over as editor, I really wanted to push the youth sports in Grand Terrace. So I took a lot of pictures and put them in the paper, and people really seemed to love that. And I always like to refer to Grand Terrace as Soccer Mom USA. No offense to Little League people, but I just thought that was a good term. And I know a lot of you sitting here know that, but I just want for everybody else listening, all the things I've seen in the last 15 years, this is like a culmination, just like everybody talked about the high school for a long time until it finally became a reality. So I commend Mr. Duffy for pushing this because he's new in town, but I think he's quickly learning that this is extremely important to Grand Terrace, which is a walking community. We recently, with the Foundation, Chamber, and Lions Club, and the council pushed this health, fitness concept throughout Grand Terrace. So I commend you on that you follow up on the healthness. So I hope to expect to see you at the 5K walk this Sunday with your family and your dog. And I like Mr. Wilson's idea of a design, what's it called? Design build concepts, if it helps save money. I've gone to the dog park meetings with these folks here. I've offered to show up with my tractor skip loader and help grade the project for them if it helps save money. Because volunteer groups is also a big fabric of this community. As you can see, many of the people here are very involved in the community also. So for everybody listening, this is really like a culmination of years of pushing for this type of Grand Terrace. So I hope to see it. I hope to see Dennis Kidd finally get his park so he stops spending my ear at bingo. He's on my bingo team. And I've walked Blue Mountain, I've walked Box Canyon, and I'm an old backpacker from Boy Scouts from all over the Sierras, so I think this is a great idea. There's more development coming to town, so there'll be more park fees. There's the Pico project, the Van Buren project. Mr. Lewis is in town. There's going to be a lot more money coming into town. The new Starbucks is coming to town. I think there's going to be plenty of park fund money coming in after you spend this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. All right, any other member of the audience who would like to speak? Okay, I see a hand. Please come forward. State your name.
I'm Julia. Hi, council members and mayor. I live on Palm Avenue, and in addition to being a PTA mom right now, I have lived in Grand Terrace since 2001, own a home here, and I worked here for about 25 years prior to having my twins and staying home. When I'm listening to everyone talk about the parks and how important it is, it really goes along with the Red Ribbon awareness. We are bringing awareness to the community by saying that we need to have healthy activities and positive things for children to do. And I would like to emphasize that parks are very important. Everyone of all ages goes to a park or would like to go to a park and have the opportunity to have those kinds of parks in our community. So I would just encourage that we focus on the youth and a place to be and how important that is for them. So that's my vote. I think it goes with Red Ribbon Week. I think it's important, as we were looking into different things within our own community and how nice it was that we have certain activities like the dance studio in town and taekwondo and other things to provide to our children. Parks would be a big part of that as well, I think. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that input. All right, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion and further discussion.
If there is no discussion, I'll motion to approve the 40. Should I read all of these? Or can I just motion and have Pat read them?
They can each be approved in a single motion or separately as the council decides.
I'll approve all. A motion to move forward with approving 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. A motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Before we vote on this, do we want to discuss at all the suggestion of the design build for the dog park? As brought up by Councilmember Wilson. Okay. I'm seeing no further discussion at this time. So we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNamara voted aye.
Will you read that back again, Madam City Clerk?
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNamara voted aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the residents who came out. And especially thank you to those that stood up and spoke on behalf of this. It's not always the easiest thing to do to stand up and speak, and really appreciate hearing your comments and your applause. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move forward with our new business. Now, on the agenda, we have item number 6 says award of September 2015 Community Benefit Fund, but actually the next item in our packet is the treasurer's report as of June 30th, 2015. So we will take the treasurer's report first, and then we will take the award of the community benefit issue. May we have a staff report, please?
Looking for this?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Cynthia Fortune from the Finance Department. Before you is the Treasurer's Report as of June 30th, 2015. This staff report supports goal number 1, ensuring our fiscal viability through the continuous monitoring of expenditure budgets, allocations, and operational costs. The purpose of the Treasurer's Report, main purposes are 3: to provide the city and successor agency with their current cash position as of a certain date and time, to identify where the cash is held, and to show sufficient cash resources to make economic commitments for the next 6 months. I'd just like to explain to council and the community, this is a Treasurer's Report, a cash and investment report. This is not a revenue less expense report, nor is it a fund balance report. It's just city's cash as of a certain period in time. So to provide a quick summary, as of June 30th, the city's total cash and investments totaled $28,134,801. $8.6 million is of the cities, and 19.4 is the successor agencies. Actually, that's pooled cash. If we include funds held by fiscal agent, total is $29.8 million. The successor agencies, $21.2 million is the bond proceeds that the RDA issued prior to redevelopment dissolution. One way of presenting the cash position to the council is to compare our current cash position today versus last quarter. So as of June 30th, we had $29.8 million. Prior to that, I'm sorry, this should have said last year instead of quarter. From a year ago, we had $30.4 million. So technically, if we looked at June of last year to June of this year, for all the receipts and disbursements we've made, we went down about $500,000. So when my staff and I reviewed what could have been the biggest impact as to why we showed a reduction, the biggest, most significant reduction in cash that we had was in January of 2015. When we applied for our recognized obligation payment schedule, instead of us being funded through revenue receipts, the DOF authorized us to use the reserve balances. So technically, our cash did not increase. What happened is we actually used existing reserves, hence the decrease of a little over $500,000. Now, when we look at, I'm sorry, this is the same report. It's the same.
Director Fortune, there's a question from Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, Mr.
So
Wilson.
to clarify for the public, we were allowed to use the $548,000 as reserve balances versus just money that was spent. Is that the intent?
Yes, actually, it wasn't 500. We were allowed to use a little over $1 million. Yeah. The net effect was just a $600,000 decrease, but we actually used that much in reserves. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I apologize for the incorrect table, but if you look at packet page 194, 193, and if we looked at the balance of $28 million, March 31st, and it increased to June 30th to 29 almost 9 million. And again, the increase of 1.8 million in June, the biggest is we received again our cash distribution from the DOF for our ROPS funding from July to December. And the biggest amount of that was about 1.4 million. And we also received our second property tax allocation of approximately 500,000. Yeah. So again, this is just the cash position, so it just shows you when our cash increases or decreases. And I didn't provide a table, but also included in the report on packet page 195 shows you the cash balance by fund. Again, as of a certain date, and that is June 30th. The ones with the most discrepancy, or those with a negative, are the Child Care Fund, our Community Development Block Grant, and their Capital Projects funds. The Child Care Fund, again, was a result of us paying our CalPERS annual amount, which we will provide additional detail when we come back for our first quarter and year-end review. For both the Community Development Block Grant and the Capital Projects Fund, these are both funds that were funded by grants and are awaiting reimbursement for expenditures that have occurred. Yeah. So as soon as we receive those fund receipts, these will go down to zero. And let's see. I'm sorry. One other item that we were supposed to show, here it is that the treasurer's report is supposed to show City Council that we can actually operate for the next 6 months of the calendar year. So meaning, should we not receive any revenue at all, we should have a cash balance that can support operations for the next 6 months. So since our total pooled cash is about 8.6 million, if we looked at our 2014-15 adopted budget of 9.6, less again successor agency, because that is funded by our PTTF receipts, we have 7.3, our adopted budget would be 7.3 million. 6-month expenditures is roughly 4.3 million. So what we're saying is our pooled cash of 8.6 is sufficient to carry us for the next 6 months in operational expenditures. That concludes our treasurer's report, and we will be coming back to City Council every quarter with a treasurer's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions City Council may have.
Thank you. Yeah. Does council have any questions of staff? Okay, seeing none. Are there any requests to speak forms? No. All right, so I will close public comment, come back to council for consideration of a motion. Recommendation is to receive and file treasurer's report.
A motion to receive and file the treasurer's report for the period ending June 30th, 2015.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNabb voted aye.
Thank you. Our next item, item 7, is the award of September 2015 community benefit funds to Foundation of Grand Terrace and Terrace View Elementary Parents Teacher PTA. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Cynthia Fortune again from the Finance Department. This staff report supports 2 goals. Number 1, again, to ensure our fiscal viability. And goal number 4, to develop and implement successful partnerships through productive collaborations with community groups, youth programs, and senior organizations. On June 23, the City Council approved the use of $25,000 from the city's general fund reserve balance to establish a community benefits fund. The purpose of the fund was to provide funding for local youth programs, community events, fee waivers, and to be used as an economic development tool for small business development in the city. And on August 11, the City Council approved the Community Benefit Funds Program guidelines, applications, and authorized the city manager to implement the program. We are happy to report that during the first month of September, we received 2 applications to use the fund. They were from the Foundation of Grand Terrace and one from the Terrace View Elementary PTA. Foundation of Grand Terrace is dedicated to strengthening the community of Grand Terrace by working closely with its community members, neighbors, service organizations, and civic leaders to undertake projects that provide cultural enhancement, beautification, education, and other projects that enhance the quality of life in Grand Terrace. As part of their activities, the Foundation strives to commit twice yearly a Grand Terrace Community Cleanup Day. Their application is requesting to fund $350 to help support GT Community Cleanup Day, which will be held on October 10th, 2015. The funds will be used to purchase tools and supplies such as rakes, gloves, paint, shovels, trash bags, trash disposal, and water to be used on the day of the event. The second application we received is from Terrace View Elementary PTA, and as they presented earlier, they are holding Red Ribbon Week from October 5th to the 9th. And this organization is providing week-long activities that provide an understanding of how drugs are harmful to our bodies and our brains. Grand Terrace Elementary PTA is requesting $1,000 to support Red Ribbon Week, and these funds will be used to purchase colorful drug-free booklets, red ribbons, and pins that will promote drug awareness. After reviewing both applications and events, staff is recommending that City Council approve both requests for funding applications. Upon City Council approval, each applicant will be required to sign a letter of agreement outlining the following. They will provide us an invoice for the grant amount. They will complete a W-9 form. They will provide a process of how they're going to disperse these funds. And within 30 days of the event, provide us receipts to show that the funds were used for what they were originally intended. And again, attached for Council's review are both applications that we've received. That concludes my report, and I will be happy to answer any questions the Council may have. And as provided also in the fiscal impact, and we will continue to do that, we will always show you what the balance of the fund will be after every application is approved.
Thank you very much. Does Council have questions of staff? Seeing none, and I have no request to speak forms on this item, so I will open and close public comment, bring it back to Council for consideration of a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of the award of the $350 for the city's Community Benefits Fund to the Foundation of Grand Terrace for a Community Cleanup Day on October 10th, and approve the award of $1,000 for the city's Community Benefits Fund to Terrace View Elementary PTA for Red Ribbon Week on October 5th through October 9th. This is exactly what we've set this fund up for.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Councilmember Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNabb voted aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 is authorization of emergency purchase order for street sweeping services. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. For the record, Adrian Freeman, Management Analyst. The staff report supports 2030 Vision Goal number 1, to ensure our fiscal viability by ensuring appropriate cost recovery for services. On September 11th, 2007, the City Council approved a street sweeping services agreement with Keller Sweeping in the amount of $4,200 a month. Keller Sweeping services residential areas, City Hall, Pico Park, and Rollins Park once a month, and the Grand Terrace Business District once a week. The city is currently on a month-to-month payment schedule with Keller Sweeping, as the original agreement has expired. City staff is preparing to issue a formal bid for street sweeping services. We estimate that by the end of February 2016, we will be under contract with a new vendor, or a new contract, I should say. the city will have a new contract for street sweeping services. The city manager has authorized payment for Keller Sweeping to cover July and August for fiscal year 2015 and 16. However, pursuant to our city's purchasing ordinance, the city manager is only authorized to approve purchases of $10,000 or less. So at this time, staff is recommending that council authorize the city manager to execute an emergency purchase order in the amount of $25,800. And this will ensure that we have the necessary funds to cover our agreement with street sweeping services, or Keller Sweeping rather, through the end of February 2016. Should council have any questions, staff is more than willing to answer at this time.
Thank you, Analyst Freeman. Does council have any questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, and I have no request to speak forms. So open and close public comment, bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
If there's no discussion, I'll authorize the city, a motion to authorize the city manager to execute an emergency purchase order in the amount of $25,800 to cover the expenses of street sweeping services to the end of February 2016.
I second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNamara voted aye.
Thank you. Item 9, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 8.112, fireworks of the city, of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Sandra Molina, Community Development Director with the City of Grand Terrace. As indicated by the Mayor, this item is the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 8.112, fireworks. I'd also like to inform the Council that present in the audience are Mike Ward with the San Bernardino County Fire District. He's the Fire Prevention Supervisor and Supervising Inspector for the department, and also Chief Mike Horton, San Bernardino County Fire Marshal. And so these two gentlemen, along with Steve Lassiter and our City Attorney and our Sheriff's Department, participate in the preparation of this amendment. So this item is, as indicated in the staff report, consistent with our 2030 vision mission statement to preserve and protect our community through exceptional quality of life, through thoughtful planning within the constraints of a fiscally responsible government. To give the council some background, on July 14th, shortly after 4th of July, members of the council expressed concerns with regard to our current, with regard to the previous July 4th incidents that had happened, and also had inquired about potential changes to our ordinance. But in particular, comments that came up were the discharging of the fireworks. There's a series of days our current ordinance allows fireworks to be discharged, and so there was discussion whether we should limit it just to the 4th of July. Also, with the discharging of dangerous fireworks, whether there would be opportunities to have public display, and then whether our potential amendments to the code would allow for stricter provisions to help with enforcement during this time of the year. So this is included in the recitals of the ordinance, but just some fireworks statistics for the council, for the public. In 2014, there were quite a few injuries related to fireworks. And in a 30-day period between June 20th and July 20th, there were 7,000 injuries related to fireworks. And then also with respect to fires, in 2011 there were almost 18,000 fires. 1,200 were structure fires, and a particular note, 32 million direct property damage was attributed to fireworks in the year 2011.
Director Molina?
Yes,
This is within the region?
United States.
United States, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. So the fireworks, Chapter 8.112, our fireworks ordinance, there are a few changes that are proposed. And included in the staff report was a complete the revision to Chapter 8.112, but specifically the item that was initially expressed during the previous July 14th meeting was to just change the discharge date to July 4th. So that's what we did, so that it's very clear it's only on one day during certain hours, and any discharging of fireworks any other time other than July 4th during those hours would be a violation. We also added a new section, which is a definition or explicit statement that dangerous fireworks is a violation of our municipal code. And even though it's already in state law, as I indicated, we are stating that in our ordinance. And for the council's edification and the public's, the dangerous fireworks would be the ones that shoot up straight into the air, such as rockets, those type of things that you typically see at a public display that shoot up, and so many people can see them. That's what is considered dangerous fireworks. We also added a provision for public display so that if there was the opportunity for a display at a park or a high school, the process would be for the promoter to obtain a special event permit. They would also obtain a permit through San Bernardino County Fire to be able to use and handle those fireworks. The city would not approve the special event permit until County Fire approved the fireworks permit to utilize those dangerous fireworks. And so that would be the process. We will also require higher liability insurance limits because it's a bigger event. And then if there's any conditions set by the Community Development Director, the appeal can be heard by our city manager. Throughout the chapter, you'll see, throughout the chapter, we deleted reference to a fireworks permit and a land use permit. We kept just the land use permit. We also revised the reference from license to permit or licensee to permittee. And then we also amended the public liability insurance limits to be consistent with our current standards. And Madam Mayor, if there's any questions at any time, feel free to, any member to interrupt me now. I'll respond. So section 8.112090 has to do with the operation of the stand, and the only changes staff proposes to make are changes that would be consistent with health and safety code, with the age of the person selling the fireworks, the age of the person purchasing the fireworks, and then to prohibit smoking, and that seems pretty straightforward. We also changed this particular section to require the posting of our no fireworks safety zone map at the fireworks stand. And we specifically added dimensions, because what happened this last 4th of July was we did put this requirement as a condition, but it was an 8.5 by 11 and very hard to see. So we're asking that it's a larger posting. As well, what wasn't in the staff report, which was an oversight, was that there's a section, .180, that references this fireworks safety zone map, and so on the dais for the council is a copy of that map that should be included in this ordinance. And we've also made changes to it to reflect this is currently in the current map, but it can only be discharged on private property, but we clarified this with respect to the new proposal that only on 4th of July could the fireworks be discharged. We added a requirement for public advertisement, and this relates to a comment about a year or so ago from a member of the council that there should be some sort of advertisement, some more public notification with respect to the requirements of the fireworks, and also that there's the no firework zone. And so this particular section requires a deposit to cover the direct cost of putting a display ad in the local newspaper, so that any difference would be refunded to the applicant. So section .180 refers to that amended no fireworks safety zone map, which is the council has at the dais. So two particular sections that we added towards the end speak to enforcement, and so this new section 1.90 authorizes the sheriff and fire departments to seize any fireworks offered for sale, stored, or held, or possessed. And any fireworks would mean safe and sane if it's being discharged or outside of the mandated date, or dangerous fireworks. And what we did with respect to administrative fines and penalties, it's quite a large section, but what it does is establishes the process and form for issuing citations. It establishes fines for the violations, and as the council probably noted, the fines are fairly significant, and they're even more so for dangerous fireworks. And then there's also a process for appealing the citation that would be issued. So in summary, those are the proposed changes to this particular ordinance, and with that, Staff would recommend that the council introduce this ordinance. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to respond as well. We have Fire County personnel here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you. Just to clarify, page 219, I don't know if the public's aware of it, but the sale of fireworks for the Safe and Sane still going from 28th of June till July 4th. Just because I don't think a lot of the public doesn't know that we still have the same fireworks sales day, but just ignition days on 4th of July only.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
At the point of sale, will there also be something that states that they can only be set off on July 4th? Although they can be purchased before that time in advance, do we have a way to communicate to people that they are not to set them off until July 4th?
Yes, there's a section in here that requires
It's page 218F.
218 requires the vendor to not only post the no fireworks safety zone, but to also post current notices and fines at the fireworks stands and copies of the rules and fines handed out with the sale of fireworks. And that's paragraph F of page 218.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Wilson.
Mayor, this is just I guess, kind of a technical, but as it says, section 8.112.190, I know what the intent was. But seizure by the San Bernardino County Fire Department and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, shouldn't it be something about being the authorized fire department and police department for the city of Grand Terrace? Because
Instead of stating who they are, just saying the authorized. I agree with that. Any other questions for staff?
I have a couple.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. My question has more to do with the administrative process. Sandra, I'll hold my question if there's something you need to share out.
Chief Lassiter was just clarifying that with respect to Councilmember Wilson's concern or comment. Chief Lassiter was just clarifying that it's a fire district. But that particular section continues on to 220, which explicitly states the authorization to seize the fireworks.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question has to do with the administrative process for the fines. Harold, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look into the questions that I proposed. The questions actually have to do with internally here within City Hall, when the payments are submitted, what sort of processes have we set in place? And can we handle maybe a capacity issue and a money handling issue?
Well, the process would be that the city finance department would take in those fines. We are also looking at establishing a service that would, similar as the parking citation process, where we have a service that then collects those fees. The other thing I wanted to express, although it was in staff report, I didn't express it verbally, was that we believe that these changes will help in the enforcement of the ordinance. But these changes won't necessarily in themselves, in order to issue these citations and fines, the fire department, the sheriff's department would actually have to see the violation. And so this is a tool and a vehicle to allow us to have better enforcement. But we may not have that onslaught of citations and fines because, as indicated by Chief Lassiter, it's very difficult to actually see the violation.
I understand it. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. It's a deterrent to keep people from distinguishing or discharging them. But I think we should still have a process in place in the event that we do have 1 or 20 fines that are issued, maybe even looking at electronic or a mail process for submitting their fines.
Yes.
Yes, Councilperson Mitchell, I did convey the question about that part that Senator addressed. However, Councilperson Mitchell made a very good point with me, and I'm sorry I didn't convey that. It was that if you have a number of people who are coming into City Hall to pay these fines, they may not be in the best disposition and not be happy about having to pay the fines. And it could cause some significant issues for regular staff because they're having to deal with a number of people who are paying some pretty hefty fines. So the goal is for us to try to find other alternatives if they're going to have to pay the fine. Can they do it online? Is it like you would pay a normal ticket? So that was her question to me.
So we can just build that out a little bit. I think I would be more comfortable.
Sure. What we can do is investigate that, and so when this comes to second reading, provide that information to the council. Would that be adequate?
Of course, thank you. And then I had a question, I think maybe for our fire experts. Is there some sort of process that firework companies, for lack of better words, go through that maybe a standard of quality? I'm asking that question because I've heard some concerns from residents who bought fireworks stands locally where they didn't properly discharge. They went off early or didn't have a proper fuse on them, those types of things. So I'm just curious from our own common knowledge to know what sorts of processes occur when they are, whatever certification that they get to sell.
Hi, my name is Mike Horton. I'm the Fire Marshal for County Fire. Thanks for letting us come in and help you through this situation. As far as quality of products, every product that's sold in the state of California has to be approved by the State Fire Marshal. It also has to carry the seal of the State Fire Marshal to be declared a safe and sane firework, which was tested in the manufacturer's testing process to be proven as safe and sane. Although that terminology isn't something the fire department likes to promote, safe and sane fireworks do have an inherent danger with them because of the unknown early discharges or non-discharge or surprising discharges that can often result in injuries. So there is a process through the State Fire Marshal that they are vetted and approved, but the testing is with the manufacturers. And that quality is their sale insurance. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
I also have a little bit of input on the admin citation process. The county fire department has an admin citation process in place, and it's with the county fire ordinance that we're allowed to enforce that in the unincorporated areas and those areas that contract with us for fire services. If you approve us to enforce your admin ordinance, we can do that, or we can use the counties countywide. But the process we use to do those tickets with is a service called Data Ticket, and there's several out there. That is a third-party handler that provides for the receipt, the charge, the collections, and the administrative hearing process. So it takes it completely out of our hands, and we contract for those services, and they provide those revenues back to the city. We, as well, don't want our staff dealing with people that aren't happy about those types of administrative fines. So there is a process for that as well.
Thank you for that additional information as well.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. Do I have any requests to speak forms on this? Okay, so we'll open public comment, and our first speaker is Mark Severtson.
Hello, Glenn, Mrs. Mayor, City Council. Being a member of the Grand Terrace Little League, we run a booth every year with the soccer league as well. We split the profits. We comply with all the laws. We send 2 representatives from our league to TNT. They give us a small class of do's and don'ts. They give us all the legal paperwork that we have to post and rules and regulations that we have to follow to be able to sell their fireworks. My concern with this is you're not hurting the people you're actually hurting the people that are doing safe and sane. You're not hurting the individuals that are causing the damage and the injuries. I don't know the exact number, but I would like to know the percentage of property damage and injuries done by safe and sane compared to the illegal ones. And I think if you make this ordinance, which we will comply with any ordinance that happens, we are happy to comply with the laws. Currently, we are allowed to sell to 16-year-olds, but they have to show proof of age. We can't just sell it to them. They can't even bring their parents up and say, this is my son, he's 16. You either have to have a birth certificate or a driver's license. So we comply with all the laws. My concern is, like my family, we like to go to the 66ers, watch the fireworks show, and my son likes to purchase fireworks, small part. He spends his money, that's the way he wants to spend it. Then we come home and we shoot fireworks. Well, we didn't get home till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Now, I can't shoot off my fireworks because I'm not complying with the law. But I know for a fact, all the people around me, and then you go down to Colton, it's like, World War II down there. You see fireworks going off everywhere. They're over my house. Every year I have to go in my backyard and pick up the ordinance that burned out in my backyard. So I understand the concerns, but I think you're doing a dishonor to the honest people, and you're not hurting the ones that are actually doing the damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Severtson. Our next speaker is Luann Archbold.
Thank you very much. I've lived in Grand Terrace for 28 years, and in 2006 I served on the committee that was put together to study the fireworks, and I was on with Kim Hathaway, who is a citizen here. We were the two citizen representatives, and we were on with the fire people and with the sports groups and with the person that sold the fireworks, the company representative for TNT, who makes bunches of money on all this. So I've spent a lot of time on this. I would just ask you, the council members, first of all, to think about the safety of the people in Grand Terrace. Our homes, our pets. I have 3 rescue dogs, and they just are horrified and terrified and if any of you have any animals, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it just is, as the gentleman said, it's like a war zone when you go outside on the night of the 4th of July. Things are going off on the air. I thought I was at the University of Redlands fireworks show this last July because things are going off over my house, and you could hear the chutes going up. So please think about our safety. It would be really helpful if we had a real efficient way to report violations. I think this fine thing is wonderful, but it needs to be advertised, like you said, at the where they sell the fireworks. But there has to be a way for us to call. I called the sheriff this year, and they said, well, we've had a lot of calls, and we may not get to you, and they're overwhelmed with things. So I hope that you will maybe come up with a phone number, as we did back in 2006, a phone number that was dedicated, and someone here at City Hall answered the phone and then directed the calls to the right people to have a way to report the violations. And I hope you would advertise these fines not only in the Blue Mountain News, but also in the newspapers in the area. And I thank you for your time, and I lastly want to thank the mayor and the city manager for the time they spent with me personally, hearing me talk about this and go forth and really try to come up with solutions. And I thought it was the dead end, but it wasn't. And I really appreciate your help. And whatever you can do will be really wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Archbold. All right, any other members that would like to speak on this?
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, City Council members, Mr. Duffy. To speak to the enforcement side of dangerous and illegal fireworks, it's often found that even the safe and sane variety are used in an illegal capacity. In one of your slides, you indicated that you had a no fireworks zone and a very high fire hazard severity zone designated by the state and adopted by the county. Those areas are where those safe and sane and dangerous and illegal fireworks are absolutely forbidden. The enforcement efforts we did last year involved a very diligent effort by surrounding local agencies, fire agencies, sheriff's department, fire investigators out at the Yermo agricultural checkpoint to stop the influx of dangerous and illegal fireworks into the county. We collected approximately 80,000 pounds of dangerous and illegal fireworks that were destined to points outside of our county, but several of the cities within. We learned that by the driver's licenses that we cited. Each one of those had a zero tolerance for transportation of dangerous and illegal fireworks into the county, which resulted into a first offense of $1,250 and a second offense of $2,500. So it's a significant fine, and we're going after the people with dangerous and illegal fireworks. As far as the use of safe and sane within the communities that allow them, we only look for those that fly into the sky, come out of the control of the operator, or explode, and those are the dangerous ones. But in speaking to the point of 16-year-olds purchasing fireworks, we find that most of the injuries result from young adults and children that are allowed to use dangerous and illegal fireworks and safe and sane fireworks. A single sparkler carries over 2,500 degrees burning power in it, which could easily ignite the clothing of a child or a young adult that doesn't use those fireworks in a mature and responsible manner. That's why I support highly that higher age limit for the purchase of fireworks. I think that puts the onus back on a mature adult to make sure that those 16-year-olds and younger are using those fireworks in a as safe as can be fashion. We will be continuing our enforcement efforts within all of our communities that we serve. We have, at the end of this year, we should have 7 fire investigators, about a dozen fire prevention personnel, working closely with the law enforcement agencies for those communities and doing neighborhood patrols and enforcing the new policies and new local ordinances by administrating those administrative fines and providing misdemeanor and felony criminal charges when necessary. So the County Fire Department supports your local ordinance changes and is here to support the enforcement of that in the future holidays to come.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion and further discussion.
Mayor, motion for approval. Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Grand Terrace, amending Chapter 8.112 Fireworks of Title 8 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code.
And I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, and I think we're introducing this particular ordinance and we'll come back, so this is sort of a first reading.
Okay.
All right, so is there more discussion? We have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I did a little bit of discussion. I'd like to try to tie up a loose end here. On section 8.112.180, I'd like to add the words to this, and I'll read it all the way through so it makes sense. Shall be unlawful for any person to discharge fireworks of any type within the no fireworks safety zone established in Exhibit A attached to ordinance number 249, as far as the Exhibit A reflects the very high fire hazard severity zone element of the general plan.
Madam Mayor, can I just, ordinance number 249, we should actually leave that blank. It will reference this ordinance that gets adopted for that fireworks map. Since we're readopting that map also with the new discharge date, it would be appropriate to reference the ordinance number that would apply to this particular ordinance, and also it would be appropriate to that introduction to include the map that was given to the council just this evening.
Okay, and then you had some other words that you wanted to add in there too. Okay. Any other discussion? Councilmember Mitchell.
I would actually like to open up discussion on possibly adding a second day so that the fireworks can be discharged on maybe the 3rd and 4th. So a little bit of maybe not being as stringent, but still tightening the policy a bit. I think oftentimes there's, holiday can fall on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It just gives them an extra day to enjoy the fireworks with their family and really just celebrate our nation and its independence.
Thoughts?
Well, I'll leave that for others to think about. I like this. I wasn't on the council when we were going through the ballot measure. And I was surprised being on the council, and some of these things were a little bit loose, and these are very, very tight. And I really want to thank the fire department. I mean, you're here late with us, and you're really providing some really expert, very well executed alternatives for us and ways to get this handled in a global way, as far as putting a chokehold on how these fireworks come in and presenting a plan to do enforcement. I know we're going to be looking at some one-time money and maybe looking at how we can do some patching with our law enforcement and possibly look at on the 4th of July, and maybe thinking this out loud, maybe one day that we have a little bit more enforcement. That doesn't show that we're going to actually see that person discharging it or whatever, but we have a stronger presence and we have a more opportunity to maybe catch some folks. I think when we live in a community, it may be nice for us to be able to want to do fireworks later at night, but for the common good, we have to come up together on agreement on some reasonable expectations on what's timely. I was the neighbor that people didn't like because I didn't think it was right to have parties in your home, many times through the year. It's just, I think, is a burden that's for the quiet enjoyment of someone else of their home. I wasn't sure about the one-day thing. I knew that was going to be a different thing, but then now listening to the input of someone who sat on the committee, I think that's something that we really need to, maybe we need to push forward with just one day. But other than that, I also want to remind the leagues that we're providing a framework, that we have the high school now, and we have a possible venue for a big fireworks show that might be a way of mitigating the need for individual homes doing fireworks and having a show that everybody can do. Maybe you could sell tickets, and by the number of the tickets, who gets the proceeds, and allocate it that way. And the city I'm sure we can contemplate providing some kind of staff support the first year to get that off the ground. But that's basically it. I want to thank you, the fire department. I think this is really solidifying where the city's been going on making this something that we can all live with. And again, to remind people who want to do fundraising out there for the leagues that maybe we ought to look at the venue of the high school and make that something that would be a major fundraising effort.
Councilmember Hussey.
I really like this ordinance as far as, it's beginning step what we need to take care of. That was my complaint last year, as Mayor Pro Tem said, our other ordinance was shaky, as far as kind of a loose cannon. The big thing was, I know we had those days when they shoot fireworks, but you pretty much had everybody shooting fireworks the whole month of July. Unfortunately, you have the mortars, projectiles being shot more than the Safe and Sane. I think they're actually hurting our youth programs by bringing in them instead of buying the Safe and Sane that's allotted in this city. And the residents, residents and non-residents coming to our city with the attitude like, oh, nobody's going to do anything about it. Now, I know it's kind of hard to catch, but when you walk down the street and you see them 3 or 4 times and they don't care, that's not kind of hard to catch. When they pretty much tell you, get away from me, I can do what I want, and I'll leave the other choice words alone, they don't care. So this is, not as a punishment, but as a deterrent. And deterrent, the fine is a big deterrent. Unfortunately, we're going to have people that's still going to do it. But, I saw last year, too, a mortar round right there by Blue Mountain. And what it is, it's just disrespect for other people's property, other people's homes. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's just a matter of numbers. As far as the age, 16 years old, you kind of do crazy things at 16 years old. I think the age is appropriate what we're bringing up for this new ordinance. The extra day, I know some families, I've been brought up that some families, single families, they have joint custody. They fire the fireworks on July 3rd. That might be something to look into. But I think this is a great step in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, so we have an option of having a second date, perhaps July 3rd and 4th, and then we have some suggested change in language. How would we like to proceed with that? Do you want to amend your motion to include your...
Well, I thought we might want to amend the motion also to add in the section about the jurisdictional.
Okay.
In 8.112.190, seizure by the authorized fire department or police department.
Okay. So that's the amendment to your motion that you're making.
So yes, I'd like to go with the 2 amendments.
Okay. And Mayor Pro Tem, you had the second on that?
Yes.
Do you concur?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. If there is no further discussion, please vote.
Motion passes 5 ayes. Council members Hussey, Wilson, Mitchell voted aye. Mayor Pro Tem Robles voted aye. Mayor McNable voted aye.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is City Manager Communications. City Manager Duffy, do you have any communications at this time?
I have none.
All right, thank you. We will move to our closed session. At this time, we will recess to closed session to discuss conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property address 22201 Barton Road, City Agency Negotiator G. Harold Duffy, City Manager / Agency Director, negotiating party Stater Brothers under negotiation parking easement. To those of you that are leaving, thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate your participation. We went way late.
That makes up for the last 2 or 3 meetings that we got in an hour out. Yeah, nobody stayed. They stayed. They almost didn't.
I'd like to personally thank Cynthia Fortune for throwing sandbags on our behalf.
That's right. Thank you, Cynthia. Director Fortune, thank you for your work on our behalf with the sandbags. Councilmember Wilson.
Throwing sandbags on
Throwing sandbags. Okay. I'll reopen City Council meeting. The council met in closed session with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. We had discussion, gave direction to staff, and there were no reportable actions. We will be adjourning this council meeting. The next regular city council meeting will be held Tuesday, October 13, 2015 at 6 p.m. Agenda item requests must be submitted in writing to the city clerk's office no later than 14 calendar days preceding the meeting. Thank you all for your participation. We are adjourned.